Hey, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Kaylee, and this is a Read Rant Review, where, you guessed it, I read a bunch of crazy books, and then I tell you all about them. Today we are continuing the thriller series on the channel, and we are going to be talking about The Woman in Cabin 10 by Ruth Ware. This book was initially published in 2016, and currently on Goodreads it's sitting at a 3.71 with a little over 800,000 ratings. I'll go ahead and read you the book description, give you a couple disclaimers, and then we'll dive right in. Lo Blacklock, a journalist who writes for a travel magazine, has just been given an assignment of a lifetime. A week on a luxury cruise with only a handful of cabins. The sky is clear, the water's calm, and the veneered special guests, jovial as the exclusive cruise ship, the Aurora, begins her voyage in the picturesque North Sea. That is 4 lines of text in that paragraph, and that was only 1 period. That might be the longest sentence I've ever read out loud. At first, Lo's stay is nothing but pleasant. The cabins are plush, the dinner parties are sparkling, and the guests are elegant. But as the week wears on, frigid winds whip the deck, gray skies fall, and Lo witnesses what she can only describe as a dark and terrifying nightmare, a woman being thrown overboard. The problem? All the passengers remain accounted for, and so the ship sails on as if nothing happened, despite Lo's desperate attempts to convey that something, or someone, has gone terribly, terribly wrong. I don't know if that's really written. If that's really proper sentences. Yes, so that is the book description, what we're getting into, some trigger and content warnings, just so you guys are aware. Again, protect your peace. Click off the video if you need to. No harm, no foul, no judgment here. So or skip 30 seconds also if you don't want anything spoiled for you. There is alcohol abuse, anxiety, confinement, home invasion, panic attacks, PTSD, brief mentions of taking one's own life and harming one's self, and some representation of anxiety. And that is on booktriggerwarnings.com. Usually I do like Storygraph, but there's quite a few websites now to check for content. So that's what we're dealing with. Like I said, this is going to contain all the spoilers, so go read the book first and then come back here and watch this video for a book club vibe, or press on if you just want to hear about a book. So don't watch this though if you are the author, friends, fans, family, stans, anything of the like. I don't know how I'm going to feel about this book. I haven't read it yet. Right? So that's kind of the fun thing I like to do with these thrillers. I like to experience it with you and kind of document my reading journey. Little bit of reading vlog, little bit of reaction stuff, little bit of, I don't know, summary gossipy sesh, you know? So we'll see what we're getting into. I don't know if I'm going to like it though. So if I talk crap about this book and you be weird about it, I'm going to be really upset. I only have one rule on this channel, and if you know it, say it with me. Don't make it weird. Please, for the love of God, that's all I ask of you people. Okay, so without further ado, let me go ahead and read a couple of chapters, and I'll come right back. Our book opens with a passage. It's not labeled as anything, so I'm just going to assume this is the epilogue, but not noted. In my dream, the girl was drifting, far, far below the crashing waves and the cries of the gulls in the cold, sunless depths of the North Sea. Her laughing eyes were white and bloated with salt water. Her pale skin was wrinkled, her clothes ripped by jagged rocks and disintegrating into rags. Only her long black hair remained, floating through the water like fronds of dark seaweed, tangling in shells and fishing nets, washing up on the shore in hanks like frayed rope. Where it lay limp, the roar of the crashing waves against the shingle filling my ears. Okay, this is a very, very different writing style than what we've gotten into lately. I don't know how I feel about this particular writing style in a thriller. Let's keep going. I woke, heavy with dread. It took me a while to remember where I was, and still longer to realize that the roar in my ears was not part of the dream, but real. The room was dark, with the same damp mist I'd felt in my dream, and as I pulled myself to sitting, I felt a cool breeze on my cheek. It sounded like the noise was coming from the bathroom. I climbed off the bed, shivering slightly. The door was shut, but as I walked across to it, I could hear the roar building, the pitch of my heart rising alongside. Taking my courage in both hands, I flung open the door. The noise of the shower filled the small room as I groped for the switch. Light flooded the bathroom, and that's when I saw it. Written across the steamy mirror in letters maybe 6 inches high were the words, "Stop." digging. And then we go into part 1, chapter 1, Friday, September 18th. And y'all already know my one complaint is if we do timeline jumping. I'm really hoping that we're just documenting over a couple of days and we're not going to be bouncing back and forth between timelines. I guess we're going to go ahead and find out. But in chapter 1, we are with Lo in her perspective, first person, and she wakes up because her cat is in her bedroom, which is like really, really weird because usually she shuts her cat out of said bedroom. So cat's on her. She's like, what the heck? I don't know what this is about. And her door's shut. So she's like, I don't know how the cat got inside. That's not normal. She opens the door to let the cat out and comes face to face with a burglar. Guy has like gloves on as well. Like this is professional, right? So they stare at each other for a minute. She's frozen in fear, clearly robbing the place. He slams the door in her face, like quite literally in her face, to the point where like her cheek gets cut, and then locks her in there, and then takes the spindle out of the door handle so she can't get out at all. And then she, obviously being locked in here, freaking out a little bit, is hearing this guy rummaging around her house, breaking glass, crashing into stuff, absolute chaos. And so when we go into chapter 2 and she is, again, bleeding from her face, trying to get out of this room with a door handle that doesn't work, she ends up finding a nail file, trying to like bust her way out of here, takes forever. And by the end of it, she has hurt her hands and she's like bleeding even worse. Doesn't really know what to do, right? Her phone, her wallet's gone, obviously. So she goes to find her neighbor. She lives in an apartment, and so once she's able to get out, she goes like across the hall and goes to her neighbor's house, Mrs. Johnson. She's very, very sweet little old lady, takes care of her. She's freaking out. She's like, oh my God, you're bleeding. Come here, come in. You know, tries to like help her a little bit because Lo is shaken up from this encounter, and they call the police, right? Trying to get her taken care of. They call the cops and they get like a new locksmith to try to fix them. And the locksmith gives her this, you know, wonderful little bit of information that says, hey, you know, about like a quarter of burglars like will come back. Like they return to the same house that they robbed before. What a horrifying sentence, by the way. What a horrifying fact to give somebody in this situation. I know it's helpful, like to some degree, but also good freaking God, let me breathe for a second. You know what I'm saying? After all is said and done, it's noon. She's obviously hasn't gone to work yet. And luckily her laptop was in her bedroom with her, so the burglar did not take that. So she's able to like open up her laptop. She has an email from her boss asking if she's going to show up today. And instead of responding back, she decides to just like go in person and maybe just get out of the house for a second, right? Obviously wants a little bit of distance from everything that happened this morning. So she goes over there and tells her boss, you know, that she got burglared, had this like crazy life event going on. And her boss is like, are you going to be okay do you want me to like find somebody else to go on the northern forage? Forage? That's not right. The northern voyage to take the Aurora, right? The boat to go on this like crazy yacht trip. And so obviously Lo is like, no. Like I still want to go on that. Like that's one of the biggest perks of the job, right? As like a travel journalist, like that's like such a cool thing that they are going to be taking this super luxury cruise liner around the Norwegian fjords. So literally, I don't know how you can pass that up, right? So she's like, no, I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna miss my train and the ship and everything. Like I'll be there. Don't worry about me. I'm good. I'm still good to go. Works a little bit more throughout the day, gets home. The act of coming home and like unlocking the door and the idea of going in here is obviously triggering to her and sending her in a spiral. And like, what if he is in here? And what if he does come back? So once she gets inside, checks the place, everything's locked, it's good, it's fine. She Googles it and she's like, okay, so like what % of burglars return? A page of links came up and I clicked on one at random and scanned down it until I came to a paragraph that read, when burglars return. A nationwide survey indicated that over a 12-month period, approximately 25 to 50% of burglaries are repeat incidents, and between 25 and 35% of victims are repeat victims. Figures gathered by UK police forces suggest that 28 to 51% of repeat burglaries occur within 1 month, 11 to 25% within 1 week. I do wonder if that is a genuine statistic or not. It'd be kind of a random one to like make up. Great. So it seemed like my friendly doom and gloom merchant, the locksmith, had actually been understanding of the problem, not winding me up. Although the maths involved in up to 50% repeat offenses, but only 35% repeat victims made my head hurt. Either way, I didn't relish the idea of being another among their numbers. She tries to relax that night, tries to get some sleep, suffering from insomnia, right? And flashbacks from this morning, decides to drink some alcohol, hoping that maybe that will help her, that'll help her pass out. Does not work. So then she decides that she's going to go for a walk. And maybe if she goes and like walks around the neighborhood a little bit, that'll help like wear her out and tire her out. In chapter 3, after wandering around London for a little bit, she ends up finding herself on her boyfriend's like front porch. She has a key, obviously, and so she lets herself inside. He is away in Ukraine for a job, and he's been gone for the last like 8 days, and he's due back the following day. So she lets herself into the apartment. She calls out, makes sure that like he didn't have anybody staying there, and ends up going into his room. And the second that her head hits the pillow, she passes out, right? Like that's all she needed. She just needed to be away from like her actual apartment. So she ends up getting a pretty good night's sleep. Everything's going great until she wakes up to a woman screaming. But it's not a woman screaming, it's her screaming, and somebody is on top of her, and she thinks that she's being strangled. So she thinks the burglar has found her. She swings, hits the guy in the face. Turns out it was just her boyfriend coming home early. So now he is bleeding, and she feels absolutely terrible about it. She gets him caught up on the whole burglar situation and what had happened. He feels super guilty that he's traveling for work all the time and that he wasn't there for her, like there to protect her from that situation and just there to help her in general. Like he's not mad at her at all for hitting him. He's like, I get it. He just feels so bad. And so he ends up going with her. They go back to her apartment. They go back to sleep. They like wake up in the middle of the night, have a little bit of conversation. Apparently he turned down a job in New York so that he could stay in London and be with her. And I'm assuming, it's not said explicitly, that he has like asked her to marry him and she won't give an answer. Like she's very hesitant about giving him an answer. And so he's like, dude, I already know what I want to do. Like I'm already here. I did all this. I'm trying to make it work with you. I've been super patient. Like you have to like give me a yes or no. We can't just keep pushing this off. And she's like, I blah, 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 pushing back. And he's like, no, I don't want to talk about it. Just go to sleep. It's super early in the morning. You have to leave for your cruise tomorrow. Just sleep next to me and let's just enjoy each other's company for like the 24 hours that we get before we have to part our ways and go to work separately and whatnot. And that is exactly what they do. They just go right back to sleep and she falls asleep, hating myself for being such a bitch, hating him for pushing me into this. So just a lot of guilt and icky feelings all around before she leaves. In chapter 4, when they actually do wake up the next morning, their fight continues, her and Judah, and about what he's given up to stay here and be with her, and her saying that I didn't ask you to do that. And she's like, you travel for work all the time, like you're gone constantly. You should have been here. You're right. You should feel guilty. Like you should have been here to protect me. And I don't want to be, one of your wives at all these different ports and stuff that you go to and suffering from crazy, postnatal depression. If we decide to get married and have kids and do all of this stuff, and then I'm all alone while you're running around the freaking world. It's a very understandable thing. And he pushes back and he's like, well, based off of like recent events, I'm in more danger in my own home than you are, i.e. referencing her punching him or like hitting it. It was like hit a bedside lamp over his head. And he apologizes immediately. She pushes back and forth. She ends up storming out. Not a great way to leave off before a trip. So after some chaotic travel, regretting her life, just kind of thinking about her life choices, she eventually gets onto the boat. And it is immaculate. This is the maiden voyage for this bougie cruise ship. I cannot emphasize that enough to you. There are only 10 cabins, tiny thing. And just for, I don't know, like the level of rich that like I can't even fathom actually living. You know what I mean? Like I I don't know, that shit's crazy to me. So she gets on the ship and we're introduced to a slew of characters. So I want everybody to say, thank you, Gwen, who's my editor, or she's going to be responsible for kind of putting up a list over here of like names of the different characters and a little short blip about them, just so we can kind of keep track of everybody along the way. So reference that if you need it. I feel like we definitely will, but I'll try to make it as like least confusing that I possibly can. Great job, Kaylee. We're doing so good so far. But as she's entering the ship, she's offered a glass of champagne from the lead of like hospitality named Camilla. And then we have Joseph, who is also one of the hospitality workers who helps her to her room. So as Joseph is walking her up to her room, he tells her about how all of the cabins are named after Scandinavian scientists. She asks who will be staying in the one named after Nobel, right? Like the Nobel Peace Prize. She asks kind of jokingly, just trying to like make light of how awkward that she's feeling, because she definitely feels out of place on a ship like this. But he answers her and he says, on this particular voyage, the Nobel suite will be occupied by Lord and Lady Bulmer. Lord Bulmer is the director of the Northern Lights Company, which owns the vessel. There are 10 cabins, 4 forward, 6 aft, all on the middle deck. Each cabin consists of a suite of up to 3 rooms with its own bedroom featuring full-sized bath and separate shower, full-sized double bed, and private veranda. The Nobel suite has a private hot tub. Okay, cool. We also learned that every cabin has a named steward to assist you day or night. Your stewards will be myself and my colleague, Carla. Okay. Again, lots of names, lots of things happening, and it's just about to get crazier as we go. She gets there. She's trying to lay down, get kind of situated, and she notes, as they are like pulling away from the shore, slowly the shoreline slipped away and the buildings of the town dwindled into the ridges on the horizon, and then into a dark line that could have been anywhere. As I watched it disappear, I thought of Judah and everything that I'd left undone. My phone was heavy in my pocket, and I took it out, hoping for something from him before we left the range of the UK transmitters. Goodbye, good luck, bon voyage. But there was nothing. The signal dipped by 1 bar, and then another, and then the phone in my hand was silent. As the coast of England disappeared from view, the only noise was the crashing of the waves. And then the chapter ends with emails. The first email is from Judah, sent to Lo on Tuesday, the 22nd of September, asking, are you okay? Hey, honey, I haven't heard from you since your email on Sunday. Not sure if our messages are crossing. Did you get my reply or the text I sent you yesterday? Getting kind of worried and hoping you don't think I'm off somewhere being an asshole and nursing my wounds. I'm not. I love you. I miss you. And I'm thinking about you. Don't worry about what happened back home. And my tooth is okay. I think it'll reroot like the doc said. I'm self-medicating with vodka anyway. Let me know how the cruise is going. Or if you're too busy, just drop me a line and say you're okay. Love, Jay. The next email is from Rowan, which is her boss, who was supposed to be on this cruise ship, like was supposed to be taking this. They take all the fancy ones because they're like the senior person, but she's getting like a procedure and she's going on maternity leave shortly. And so Lo thinks that this is kind of like the test, right? Like the journal that she works for. They're thinking the journal, the magazine that she works for. She thinks that this is like a test of if she would be able to step in for Rowan's maternity leave. So anyway, she emails her. Lo, could you please reply to my email sent 2 days ago requesting an update on the cruise? Jen tells me you filed nothing and we were hoping for some kind of copy by tomorrow, a sidebar piece at the least. Please let Jen know ASAP where you're at with this and CC me or reply. Jen is the one that she talked to and had like gone to work and initially told her that she wasn't going to make it. I think Jen is like the big boss and then Rowan is like the middle, just senior journalist person. So this is interesting, right? Tuesday, the 22nd, and then the email from Rowan was on Wednesday, the 23rd. Our book started on the 18th, which was Wednesday. She had a couple days. I think she left on, let me see exactly what date she left on, because I don't know if that actually got said explicitly. Yeah, it's not explicit, but the book started on the 18th. And then I think it was like the robbery that whole day. And then she spent Saturday with Judah. And then I think she left on Sunday. So there's just a lot of days passing in the emails that were being given. Anyway, I don't know, just something to know. We go into part 2, chapter 6. There's no reception, so we were definitely out of the range of the UK transmitters, but there was Wi-Fi. I clicked on mail and downloaded my emails, chewing my nails as they popped one by one into the inbox. It wasn't quite as bad as I'd been fearing. It was a Sunday after all, but as I scanned down the list, I realized I was tense as an elastic band about to snap, and at the same time, I understood what I was looking for and why. There was nothing from Judah, and I felt my shoulders slump. Okay. So part of this like super, super fancy cruise thing on this first night, there's like a welcoming dinner. And so she ends up taking a nap for a little bit. She's a little antsy working on work stuff. And then she is going to get ready for this super fancy dinner to the point that like she rented like 3 evening gowns to wear over the course of the cruise to like impress these people. Like it's like that kind of bougie, right? So she spends a bunch of time getting ready, running around, putting on these dresses, trying to look super, super nice. In the middle of doing her makeup, she realizes that she forgot mascara, and she hears somebody in cabin number 10, the one next to her. She hears like a shower running. So she's like, oh, great, this is awesome. Maybe I can just go over there. All right, so she steps out, she knocks on the door. Eventually, a girl opens it. The door flew open as if the occupant had been standing on the other side. What? She demanded, almost before the door had opened. Is everything okay? And then her face changed. Shit, who are you? I'm your neighbor, I said. She was young and pretty with long dark hair, and she was wearing a ratty Pink Floyd t-shirt with holes, which somehow made me like her a lot. Laura Blacklock. Lo, sorry, I know this sounds really weird, but I wondered if I could borrow some mascara. There was a scatter of tubes and creams visible on the dressing table behind her, and she was wearing quite a bit herself, which made me fairly sure I was on safe ground. Oh. She looked flustered. Right, hang on. She disappeared, closing the door behind her, and then came back with a tube of Maybelline and stuck it in my hand. Hey, thanks. I'll bring it back. I'll bring it right back. Keep it, she said. I protested automatically, but she waved my words away. Seriously, I don't want it back. I'll wash the brush. But she shook her head impatiently. I told you, I don't want it. Okay, I said, slightly puzzled. Thanks. You're welcome. And she shut the door in my face. Okay, kind of an odd interaction, but in chapter 7, she goes downstairs or upstairs, rather, I guess. I don't know, wherever the heck she is comparatively. She goes up to the ballroom to go and like have this fancy dinner thing. But beforehand, obviously, they're having like the mingling time. And so they're going around, and this is where we get introduced to like a significant number of characters, okay? I feel like we're playing the game Clue. I feel like that's kind of the intent of this. So that's the other reason that I'm going to like rattle these names off, because I feel like it's going to be relevant in some capacity. So we meet a guy named Cole. He is this really, really renowned photographer. This is kind of a weird thing, right? Just going out to the fjords and taking pictures, or like taking pictures of a cruise ship. This isn't really his vibe. Usually he's doing more things of like, you know, ice caps melting or animals that are going extinct and things of that nature. And she kind of calls him on this a little bit. And she's like, this is a little out of your realm, isn't it? He's like, yeah, but you know, I couldn't turn it down. Okay, awesome. And then I recognized a few faces from other press shindigs. Again, keep in mind, this is the maiden voyage. The main guy is the company owner. He's invited a lot of press people here to report on this, to try to like, you know, get the company off the ground, I guess, or to like really document this maiden voyage to like get customers and stuff. So there's Tina, who is an editor. The travel journalist Alexander, who wrote foodie articles for a number of cross-channel and in-flight magazines, and then Archer, who was a well-known expert on extreme travel. And then we are also introduced to Ben Howard. He used to work at the same company that Lowe did. And there it has been, you know, I've read ahead, right? I've read up to part 4 as I'm reporting to you now. And they dated a couple of years ago or something. Like there was like a fling or a relationship or something between them a couple of years ago. So she's kind of frustrated to see him. And he's like immediately flirtatious with her and is like, you know, what happens in the fjord stays in the fjord. So like, And this upsets her. But that's kind of where we're at in terms of like journal people. Everybody else, because they have not been suffering from being burglared in the PTSD aftermath, have been doing research on all of the other guests. And so she asks Ben of kind of like, hey, can you kind of tell me who's here exactly. Like she did not study appropriately for this trip, right? And so he gives her, a heads up, gives her a little bit more information about Lord Bulmer, who is the ship owner guy. He came into a lot of money. I don't know. And then his wife, Anne, is there, and she is going through cancer treatment, breast cancer. And so she's looking a little rough, and everybody's kind of pitying her almost and kind of questioning like why she would be here if she's so ill. But she is, she's representing this is like her husband's thing, or I guess hers as well, because she comes from a lot of money. Her parents were owners of this like automobile company thing. I don't know, maybe they're in this together. And so she's here just representing, right? Trying to help out and stuff. So she's there. And then there's also a woman named Chloe, who is an ex-model and married to a guy named Lars, who is there. And then last but not least, there's a guy named Owen who is an investor. And I'm pretty sure that's like the whole kit and caboodle. Like that's everybody that we have to deal with for this. If not, I'll correct myself along the way. But so far, so good, right? That's all of the ship's occupants in terms of like guests. And so chapter 7 ends with Cole, the photographer, making a comment about how Tina, the editor, would skin her own grandmother for the sake of a story. My only worry would be coming out of the encounter alive. Because they're talking about like hooking up in the middle of the ocean, basically, a little bit of like a free-for-all. He too has the hots for low, apparently. And she kind of like plays it off and says he should hook up with Tina. And so that's why he's saying this. Anyway, their weird gossipy session gets interrupted as they, clank on the champagne glass and are telling them to make their way to the room to be served dinner. As we started to file through, I felt someone's eyes on my back, and I turned to see who it was. The person standing behind me was Tina, and she was looking at me very speculatively indeed. So, homegirl probably heard you talking shit, you know what I'm saying? We go into chapter 8, and this is the formal dinner. And her first course, they're going to change seats every course. So the first one, she's sitting by, the ex-model and the financer guy, Lars, right? And then Archer, who is the traveler. They have a bunch of like, I don't know, rich people talk. It doesn't really matter, but there's this awkward encounter where Chloe asks her if she's okay because her concealer isn't really covering up that whole cheek thing very well, right? From when the burglar had slammed the door in her face and like had cut her cheek. So Chloe's like asking if she's all right. She opens up about the burglary because, you kind of have to tell the truth in that situation, right? Because it just looks bad. But she also feels awkward because she's like, I'm here with all these like rich socialites and I'm over here playing like pity party victim. And she's like, I don't want to be that way, but also I have to be truthful. So she just tells it out, she's just like laying it out there, tells them about the burglary. And Archer, he's like, oh, you need to take self-defense classes. Here, let me show you. And so she stands up, homeboy, like, I don't know, whips her around, does some weird stuff, puts her in like basically like a arm, not an arm bar, but like her arm behind her back and like hurts her shoulder pretty badly because he's like pretty rough as he's showing her this. There's a comment about, I believe it's from Chloe, and she's like, hey, don't mind him. I'm pretty sure that stuff they said about his first wife is true. And I was like, what the heck? What does that even mean? Like, that sounds terrible. So then they move seats again, right? And they're just kind of like bipping and bopping around. So the thing to note though, like what I guess like kind of really matters is the guests were broken up into 2 tables, and there are at the 2 tables, there's 6 seats at each, right? So there's 12 total guests, but 2 of the chairs are empty. The one chair that is empty is the guy's wife, the boat owner's wife, who has cancer because she went back to her room because she wasn't feeling good. The other empty table setting is for Cole, the photographer. It was for his wife. She was supposed to join him, but she like slept with his best friend or something or cheated on him. So she's not coming, obviously. And it was like kind of a last second thing. And so he explains that to the staff, makes a curt comment about how his wife won't be there, and they clean up that place setting. And then obviously the other guy's wife, right, or Anne, right? She's sickly. So they clean up that place setting, and then also Anne's, since she went back to her room, right? So Lo is looking at this, and she's like, wait a second, but that means that there wasn't a seat for the woman in cabin 10. Like, that's really weird. Where'd she go? Or like, who was she? Why isn't she here? Like, that's odd. So she's like, well, maybe she's like a daughter of somebody. Like, she didn't really look like she belonged here either. Like, she looked even more out of place than I did. So I don't know. And the whole dinner, she's just kind of thinking about that, or her mind is like trailing to Judah, or it's trailing to the burglary. And it's just all over the place. Like, she is like not here, you know what I'm saying, with this whole dinner situation. They just continue going through dinner and like moving around and having these like socialite conversations. I don't think it's anything too groundbreaking. I think it's just like fleshing out these characters individually. I think I've pulled out the weird conversations for you though. After dinner, all of the guests move to the other room and they start having drinks and like just going around talking and hanging out. And she is trying to talk to Lord Bulmer, right? The ship owner. She's like, I need to talk to him. I need to get like, not an interview piece, but I need to get some type of information. But they just don't end up speaking. He gets too busy, or she's busy, or whatever. And then there comes a point where Cole is talking to her again, and he takes a picture of her, and this really spooks her. She's a little jumpy. He apologizes because she like had spilt some of her drink on the couch and like on her dress and stuff. And so as an apology, he calls over Lord Bulmer and he's like, don't worry, like we were friends back in the day, kind of sort of. We haven't talked in a long time, but we're buddies and he invited me, so it's fine, right? We're a little more casual of a friendship relationship here than you other journalist people that are here. Calls him over. They try to talk for a second, immediately gets called away to talk to somebody else. And Lord Bulmer says, oh, don't worry, I'll come by your cabin the next day so we can like sit down for a brief meeting. Cause you know, these types of events are a pain in the butt to talk to. And so she's thankful for this. So she just continues schmoozing through the night until eventually she returns to her cabin and she is like drunk. Like she drank a lot. And as she's standing outside of her cabin door, digging through her bra where she had stored her room key, she can't find it. And then Ben comes up, right? Her ex-boyfriend, other journalist guy comes up. And he's like, oh, hey, you know, I can help you, blah, 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 blah. He's very drunk. He's being a lot of bit aggressive. She's telling him no. He ends up like sticking his hand down her dress and like grabbing her boob. She obviously appropriately reacts to this, knees him in the balls, rips her dress in the process, and he like just falls to the floor. Okay? You get like a little break in the paragraphs. 20 minutes later, she's sitting on her bed, he's sitting on the couch, and they're talking, and he is apologizing repeatedly. She's saying, it's okay. You know, it's not you. I just can't cope anymore, Ben. Ever since the burglar, I've just been, and she's just like breaking out in sobs. And he's like, the burglar? And so she opens up to him, tells him the entire story in like vivid detail and how violated she felt by it and how scared and helpless and everything. Like more information than what she had even told her boyfriend, Judah. Like she just dumps it all out because she's, again, say it with me, drunk off her ass, you know? So she's just like pouring it all out for this guy. And so he continues to apologize to the point that then he's now apologizing for how their relationship ended. And he's trying to talk about it. And he's trying to talk about them. And she just keeps saying, no, it was over a long time ago. Anyway, you were the one who wanted out, remember? And he says, I know, I was a twat. She's like, you weren't. Okay, you were, but I know I wasn't the easiest. Look, that's not the point now. We're friends, right? Okay, so like, don't screw this up. He says, okay, and he eventually leaves the room. She goes to her minibar, drinks a bit more alcohol, and then passes out. Another little page break, line break thing going on. And I don't know what woke me up, only that I shot into consciousness as if someone had stabbed me in the heart with a syringe of adrenaline. I lay there rigid with fear, my heart thumping at about 200 beats per minute. And I scrabbled for soothing phrases I'd repeated to Ben just a few hours ago. You're fine, I told myself. You're completely safe. We're on a boat in the middle of the ocean. No one can get in or away. It's about the safest place that you could possibly be. Okay, cool. So she is, again, freaked out still. Obviously not going to be able to fall back asleep. And so she's just laying there for a little bit. And so she ends up rolling over. She checks her phone. It's 3:04 a.m. She refreshes her email. Nothing from Judah, and that's about all that she needed to know. So she decides to, you know, pick up her book off her nightstand and try to read that. Maybe that'll help like kind of soothe her back to sleep. But although I tried to concentrate on the words, something niggled at the corner of my mind. It wasn't just paranoia. Something had woken me up, something that left me jumpy and strung out as a meth addict. Why did I keep thinking of a scream? I was turning the page when I heard something else, something that barely registered above the sound of the engine and the slap of the waves, a sound so soft that the scrape of paper against paper almost drowned it out. It was the noise of the veranda door in the next cabin sliding gently open. I held my breath, straining to hear, and then there was a splash, not a small splash. No, this was a big splash, the kind of splash made by a body hitting the water. And then there's a very long series of posts on Facebook from September 24th, where Judah had posted saying, "Hey guys, bit concerned about Lo. She hasn't checked in for a few days since she left on a press trip. Has anyone heard from her? Getting kind of worried." There's comments from like her best friend that had messaged her on Facebook on Sunday. Lo's mom responds back, who had also talked to her on Sunday, but that's really the last time that anybody has heard from her. And he continues to post on it like through the day. Like it's like 11:50 a.m., 3:47 p.m., 6 p.m., where he's like, anything? Anybody? Please, anybody? Has anybody heard anything? Right? Because they were going to reach out to different people to see if anyone had talked to her or heard from her or anything at all. No responses. And in chapter 10, we go into part 3. Hearing the body being thrown over the edge, she runs out to the balcony trying to like look in the waves to try to find the body. And she thinks that she sees one like sinking into the waves. And then she looks over, she like peeks her head over at the, veranda next to her, right? The balcony, basically, like outside of your cabin on the cruise ship. She like takes a little peek over because it's like privacy screens. And on the sliding glass door of that one, or the veranda door of that one, there's this giant streak of blood. She's like, oh, that's not very good. Oh, and I'm kind of an idiot because if that person got thrown overboard, then the murderer just saw me. There's no way they didn't hear me sprinting over here. And they probably just saw me poke my head around. So she starts getting really, really scared. Understandably, right? So she goes back into her room. She locks the veranda door. She calls her, stewardess, Carla. And she's like, hey, I'm pretty sure I just saw a body go over the edge. And Carla's like, oh, okay. Are you okay? Are you safe? And she's like, I mean, I guess, I don't know. I don't know. She's like, okay, well, let me go ahead and get security. He'll come down there. And then I'll call you when he's there so you know to open the door. Like, you'll know that it's our guy. So, okay, thank you. Hangs up. After she hangs up, she's like, okay, well, if like somebody's coming in here, I have to get decent because she's basically like naked, right? Because she was sleeping. And so she gets like a little nightgown. She goes into the bathroom to grab it. And when she goes in there, she realizes it's clean. Obviously the maid service had come in while they were at dinner and had cleaned all of her stuff. She had left her makeup a complete mess as she was doing it, but now it's like stacked and organized and all pretty, and her medications that she takes are like put away into a bag. And she's like, well, that feels kind of weird. Like that feels shameful. That's even worse than having them out. And I was like, what medications are you taking? Because you're drinking a lot to be on medications right now. And I feel like we have an unreliable narrator of sorts. And I don't know what exactly that entails, but I don't think that's ever a good thing, right? That these two things are mixing. Anyway, and also this makes her feel really violated and uncomfortable after the burglary. The idea of people like going through her stuff and touching her stuff is not helping her sanity right now. Puts on this nightgown, ties it tight, guy knocks on the door. They tell her that it's security. She's like, okay, cool. She opens it. We meet a guy named Nilsson. She tells him what's going on. He's concerned about it. She guides him outside to look at the blood streak on the veranda door. Nothing's there. She's like, no, there was blood there. Like maybe they like cleaned it up or something. I don't know. He's like, okay, well, let's go into the cabin next door then. And so she follows him. He opens up the door. They go in. Cabin 10 is spotless. Nobody's there, right? There's no evidence of any guest being there. They open that door. Everything's fine. It looks totally normal. And she's like, I don't understand. The girl was here earlier. Like, I know who I saw. I know that she was here. I don't know why this is such a clean room. Maybe the maids cleaned it. I don't know, but it doesn't make sense that he would have been able to clean up a crime scene basically before Nielsen would have gotten there. Her story is just falling apart. And so Nielsen is like, okay, well, how much have you had to drink? And she wants to lie about it, but her trash can was full of her minibar bottles. Like, it's pretty obvious. And so she is like, okay, yeah, I was drinking, but like, I know what I saw. And he says, I'm not trying to contradict you. but there's nobody in cabin 10. She's like, yeah, I know, I saw it, but I'm telling you there was. And he says, no, there was no guest ever staying in cabin 10. Uh-oh. So she's like, that just doesn't make any sense at all. And she's like, well, no, she's like, I have evidence, because she remembers the mascara, because she still has it. And she's like, she gave me this mascara. And he's like, okay. He's like, again, I'm not saying that like I don't believe you. I'm just saying that nobody's been there, and I don't know if that's just your mascara. Like, I don't have any proof of anything that happened. And she's like, well, I know what I saw and I know what I heard. And he said, okay, I get it. He's like, but I'm telling you, like, we're a really tight-knit crew, and we would know if somebody was missing. Like, all the crew and people are accounted for, and there was no guest in that room. So I'm not sure what's happening. She's like, well, can you just wake everybody up and just like make sure that everyone's okay? And like, I need to find the girl that I saw. And he says, no. Again, maiden voyage situation of this thing, and a woman who's drunk off of her ass. He's not going to cause a scene, right? Like, she mentions it, I think, in like another chapter or two, but the idea that there are a bunch of reporters on here, and if it goes into this crazy news about how wild this maiden voyage was, that's not going to be a good look for the company, right? If somebody goes missing on the maiden voyage, that's not a good look for this company at all. And also, it's like 3 a.m. with all these crazy rich people. She's the outsider here. He's not about to like piss off his bosses, right? And get fired and never be able to do security and like stuff on this boat again. So, like, there's like a lot on the line for this random drunk woman. Take that as you will. I don't know. They're both in really, really crappy situations. So he says, okay, well, how about this? He's like, maybe who you saw, right? We know it's not a guest. He's like, I know it's not a guest. It might have been maybe one of the workers here. Like, maybe you saw one of the other staff members. He's like, how about I come in the morning and I'll take you around to meet everybody, and you can see the woman for yourself, right? Because she has to be on the ship. Like, we're all accounted for. Again, tight-knit team. She's got to be here. So I'll walk you around in the morning. We'll introduce you to some folks. Soothe your worries. She realizes she's being shut down, but she has nothing to really counter. So she accepts this answer and insists that he comes at 8 a.m, like immediately when he starts his shift, even though he had offered to come at like 10:30, recognizing that she's going to be hungover. But she refuses, because she's like, I'm not going to be able to go back asleep after this. Like, I'm going to be awake. So come back as soon as you can, like 8 a.m. Okay, ma'am, I'll be here. In chapter 12, he returns to her room at 8 a.m. and he's knocking on it, and she's not answering because she is passed out, right? Obviously, she's super hungover, crazy headache, super nauseous. And she's like, why would somebody be here at 8 a.m.? This is so crazy. And as she gets up to open the door, it all comes like flooding back to her, and she remembers everything. And so she's like, oh, hey, let me shower first and like get ready. So like 10 minutes later, she's ready and dressed, and he's there, and he takes her to go and walk around and meet everybody. Again, just like not boding very well. Okay. So she's going through this, meets like 20 more people. I don't know if any of them are relevant enough at this point to really bring up. So I'm just going to like acknowledge very like blankety. There is only one woman on the ship that matches her description. That's like the age, race, speaks English, like perfect English without like an accent. A lot of the people here are Scandinavian, right? And so there's a lot of accents going around, or like they just speak broken like English. But she's like, no, like this was like English speaker, super clear, like long black hair, pretty, I think late 20s or 30s or something, and blah, blah, blah. It's like one person who meets that description and not her, right? Everybody else is either like wrong hair color, has an accent, doesn't speak English, or is just like not the right age range, right? Like just completely off. Like there's nobody that could even be like mistaken. And she knows in her heart that like, none of these people are the woman that she saw. The only thing of note really that kind of happens in this chapter beyond that and all of these introductions and like crew dynamic is there's this one guy that goes from the kitchen and is like talking to her, and he's the head chef, and he reaches out to shake her hand, and he's wearing latex gloves because he was, getting food prepped and whatnot. And she's just staring at his hand because she's getting flashbacks to the burglar wearing the gloves. He is like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. Yeah, sorry, forgot I was doing this, and like takes him off, kind of thinking that she was like bulking at that. And she, kind of recovers herself a little bit here, continues the search around, and nothing happens with any of these people, and she just feels like she's going insane. And the final thing that Nielsen says to her before he just kind of leaves her, because he's like, I don't know what else to tell you. I don't know what else to tell you. He tells her about how they're on their way to Trondheim. I believe, what is Trondheim? Where is this at? It's in Norway. Okay, I'm sorry to all of my Norwegian listeners. I am Norwegian. I would hope that I would be able to have done any type of study on my ancestry in any way. Maybe one day I will, but not yet. So she's like, oh, there. I thought we were going to Bergen first. A change of plans, perhaps. I know that Lord Bulmer is very much hoping that you will all get a glimpse of the northern lights. Perhaps there are particularly good conditions tonight, so he wanted to hasten north. Or it might have been a suggestion of the captain. There may be climatic reasons why it's better to do the trip that way around. We have no fixed itinerary. We are very much able to cater to the whims of our passengers. It may be that someone at dinner last night was particularly anxious to see Trondheim. What's in Trondheim? Trondheim itself? Well, there's a famous cathedral, and parts of the city are very attractive, but it's mainly the fjords. That and the fact that the city is, of course, much farther north than Bergen. So there's a better chance of seeing the aurora. But it might be that we have to go farther north still to Bodo or even Tromsø at this time of year. It's still uncertain. I see. For some reason, his words unsettled me. It was one thing to feel yourself part of an organized, itinerized trip. It was quite another to realize that you are a helpless passenger with someone else at the wheel. Chapter 12 ends with her reflecting on meeting everybody and nobody matching this description. The more faces I saw, each corresponding slightly, but not completely to my memory, the harder I was finding it to hold on to the image in my head. And yet, there was something defining about that girl, something I was sure that I would recognize if I saw her again. It wasn't the features. They were pretty, but ordinary enough. It wasn't the hair or the Pink Floyd t-shirt. It was something about her, the sheer liveliness and vivacity of her expression as she peered sharply out into the corridor, her surprise as she had seen my face. Was it really possible that she was dead? But the alternative was not much better, because if she wasn't, the only other possibility, and suddenly I wasn't sure it was better or worse, was that I was going mad. In chapter 13, she's eating her breakfast by herself in the dining room and just thinking about everything that has happened so far. And really, it's just thinking about this girl, right? It was her face that troubled me. The more I struggled to remember it, the more it blurred. The concrete bits, her height, the color of her hair, the state of her nails, all that I could picture clearly, but her features, a neat nose, narrow dark brown eyes, carefully plucked, that was about it. I could say what she was not. She was not plump, old, or acne spotted. Saying what she was far harder. Her nose had been normal, her mouth normal, not wide, not rosebud, not pouting, not bee-stung, just normal. There was nothing distinctive that I could put my finger on. She could have been me. Uh-oh, I don't like that. I knew what Nielsen wanted. He wanted me to forget what I'd heard. The scream, the stealthy slide of the screen door, and that horrible, huge, slithering splash. But she also doesn't know if she heard the scream, right? Like, that's what she thinks woke her up out of her sleep. So I don't know. He wanted me to start doubting my own account of things. He was taking me seriously only to make me start undermining myself. He was letting me ask all the questions I wanted, enough to convince me of my own fallibility. And part of me couldn't blame him. This was the Aurora's maiden voyage, and the boat was stuffed with journalists and photographers and influential people. There was hardly a worse time for something to go wrong. I could imagine the headlines now. Voyage to death, passenger on luxury press trip drowned. As head of security, Nielsen's neck would be on the line. He'd lose his job, at the very least, if something went wrong on the Aurora, on the very first voyage he was involved in. And she's like, also kind of regretting this whole thing because she is thinking about how all the other people are already probably networking and had breakfast together, and they're like, you know, probably back in their rooms and doing research on, you know, the influential people, and they're all gonna make all these connections and do these great things, and she's just sitting here spiraling, right? And as she's thinking this, Ben ends up coming up. They talk for a little bit and she decides to not tell him about everything that went on because, I mean, after what happened last night, like, would he even believe her? Like, after their weird interaction thing that they had? But he does say that he stayed up super late playing poker with a couple of the guys because when he had left her room, he had bumped into Archer and we ended up playing poker with Large and Richard Bulmer until stupid o'clock. And she's like, oh, well, like, what time did you go to bed? And he's like 4-ish, I think, right? And she had heard the scream around 3. So maybe that's an alibi for those 4 people. I don't really know. But he ends up eating breakfast. She goes to step out and because it's just awkward and weird. And the second that she stands up, one of the workers comes to collect her plates. And she's like, that's a really, really freaky response time. Like, I wonder if there's like spy holes here watching people. It's also a weird thing to say. But also she's just feeling kind of, again, watched and violated and kind of jumpy anyway. But I don't know. I'm just saying it out loud in case it's relevant. So this happens. She wanders around, ends up in a library, finds an exit, steps outside, and then she runs into Tina, the editor, right? Tina's smoking a cigarette. They have a little bit of conversation back and forth. Tina's like, wow, dude, you look really hungover and you were like really pounding those drinks last night. You know, the best cure possible is, you know, hair of the dog, right? Which is like, drink some more. And she's like, and have a nice long lay or whatever. And her only response is just like a silent nod. Tina asks her if she has a lighter or another cigarette because she didn't bring it with her. She says, I don't smoke. Tina says, okay, well, I don't know. Like, if you blah, 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 blah. Conversation turns into, hey, if you ever want another job, you know, if this stuff doesn't work out for you over there, you should like hit me up sometime. Okay, thanks. And then she tries to ask the question back, right? She's trying to have a conversation with Tina. And she's like, so what about you? Did you have a good time last night? She stopped abruptly at that. The heavy door held in one hand, her fingers clenched on the metal, the tendons on the back of her hand standing out like iron cables. She turned to stare at me. What did you say? Her neck was thrust forward like a velociraptor's, her eyes boring into me. I stopped, taken aback by the ferocity of her response. I was just wondering. Well, I suggest you stop wondering and keep your insinuations to yourself. A clever girl like you knows better than to make enemies in this business. Then she let go of the door and let it slam shut behind her. I stood on deck, staring blankly after her retreating back through the salt-misted door and wondering what on earth had just happened. I shook my head and pulled myself together. There was no point in trying to figure it out now. I should be back in the cabin, preserving the one bit of evidence that I had left, i.e. the tube of mascara. I had locked the door before I left with Nielsen, but I realized as I made my way carefully down the stairs to the cabin deck and saw the cleaners pulling their vacuums after them, their trolleys piled with towels and linens that I had forgotten to put out the do not disturb sign. Inside, the suite had been valeted to within an inch of its life. The sink had been polished, the windows cleaned of salt spray, even my dirty clothes had magically disappeared. The torn evening dress was also gone. But I wasn't interested in any of it. Instead, I went straight to the bathroom, to the neat ranks of makeup and cleansers on the vanity's surface. Where was it? I pushed aside the lipstick and gloss and toothpaste, moisturizer, eye makeup remover, half-used blister pack of pills, but it wasn't there. No flash of pink and green leaped out at me. Under the counter then, in the bin? I went through the main bedroom, opening drawers, one after another, hunting under chairs, but where was it? Where was it? But I knew the answer. Even as I sank into the bed, head in my hands, it was gone. The tube of mascara, my one link to this missing girl, was gone. Because that was like her literal only evidence that she was clinging to so hard was this tube of mascara. She's like, I know I'm not losing my mind because I have this. But now it's gone. And in the section where we were getting like emails, you know what I mean? We get like emails from what's going on with the folks at the end of each of the parts. Now we get Saturday, September 26th, Haringey Echo website. London tourist missing from Norwegian cruise vessel. Friends and relatives of missing Londoner Laura Blacklock are said to be growing increasingly concerned about her safety. Blacklock, who resides in West Grove in Haringey, was reported missing by her partner Judah Lewis during a holiday aboard the exclusive tourist ship, the Aurora Borealis. Mr. Lewis, who was not with Miss Blacklock on board, reported that he had become concerned after Miss Blacklock did not return messages on board the cruise liner, and when attempts to contact her failed. A spokesperson for the Aurora Borealis, whose maiden voyage left Hull last Sunday, confirmed that Blacklock had not been seen since a planned trip to Trondheim on Tuesday, September 22nd, but the company said that it had been initially assumed that she had decided to curtail her trip. It was only when Miss Blacklock failed to return to the UK on Friday and her partner raised the alarm that they became aware that her departure had not been planned. Pamela Crew, the missing woman's mother, said that it was extremely out of character for her daughter not to have made contact and appealed for anyone who might have seen Miss Blacklock, also known as Lowe, to come forward. And that is how we end part 3. Of note, there are a total of 8 parts. So I'm going to go ahead and keep on reading my little butt off, and I will report back to you tomorrow.
Hi, it's a day later. I've worked for literally the last 2 hours to try to get the ability to record. Don't know what happened to my camera. I don't want to talk about it. I'm about one more bad thing going wrong for me to burst into tears hysterically. So, sorry if there's obviously quality scenery change, whatever. Speaking of bursting into hysterical tears, finding out that the mascara is missing makes Lo burst into hysterical tears. Again, understandably so. We go into chapter 14, which is the beginning of part 4, and right, freaking out about this mascara, she hears the vacuum cleaners going outside, and she realizes, okay, so like maybe the cleaners must have grabbed it. Let me go and ask them like what's going on if they saw it. A little bit of like a broken English misunderstanding situation going on with the cleaner, but she says, yeah, I saw it last night. I didn't see it this morning. Is it not in your room? I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. And she's like, no, it's fine. You know, trying to play it off because she doesn't want to, like, I don't know, I guess cause more drama and more attention to what's happening. So she decides to call Nielsen to report to him about this mascara missing. He comes to her room and he is like visibly exasperated, right? Like he's getting a little tired of dealing with the situation, and he kind of says as much as politely as he possibly can. He's like, hey, you know, Miss Blacklock, I interviewed Ben to see if he had heard the same scream that you had heard, and he told me about, you know, the burglary that happened to you, how you haven't been sleeping very well, and also that you take antidepressants. And she's like, don't you play that game. Do not sit here and write me off as this like hysterical woman, and that, you know, I'm just like making all this stuff up and blah, 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 blah. Like you don't believe me. That's what it is. And he's like, it's just, you know, alcohol and you know, the antidepressants, like maybe it caused some hallucinations or something, right? Like just bad mixes of stuff. And she interrupts him and she's like screaming at him now and kicking Nielsen out of her room. He leaves and she starts again sobbing quite a bit because everybody is like writing her off and acting like she's crazy, and she's starting to feel crazy. And so she decides to go to Ben's room and confront him and be like, hey, what the fuck? And he has no idea what she's really talking about, right? Like he's kind of like caught off guard about this, and he apologizes and he's like, hey, I mean, I didn't say it quite like that. And he opens up his door and she's like, what did you do? Why would you do this to me? Like, what did you tell him? You tell him how I couldn't get out of bed before? You told him about my mental break? You told him about like how crappy everything was after college? Because when she was like 25 years old was when she was dating Ben, and she had gone through like this really, really horrible bout of like mental health crisis going on. And I have some highlights here actually that I wanted to read because I thought this was like really, really well put. My friend Erin says that we all have demons inside us, voices that whisper we're no good, that if we don't make this promotion or ace that exam, we'll reveal to the world exactly what kind of worthless sacks of skin and sinew that we really are. Maybe that's true. Maybe mine just have louder voices. But I don't think it's as simple as that. The depression I fell into after university wasn't about exams and self-worth. It was something stranger, more chemical, something that no talking cure could fix. Cognitive behavioral therapy, counseling, psychotherapy, none of it really worked. in the way that the pills did. Lizzie says that she finds the notion of chemically rebalancing your mood scary. She says it's the idea of taking something that could alter how she really is, but I don't see it that way. For me, it's like wearing makeup. Not a disguise, but a way of making myself more how I really am. Less raw. The best me I can be. I think that is an incredibly beautiful way to put that. I, for an incredibly long time, was very much of the Lissy girl, where I didn't want to take any type of medication. I was very vocally anti any sort of medication because of that, right? I was like, you are who you are, figure it out. Which is, all fun and games to have that opinion until you do have a mental health crisis that does actually require, chemical rebalancing of your brain. And you learn real quick to her experience that it's not changing who you are. It's just helping you be the best that you can be. And it just helps kind of, maybe focus in a little bit of who you are rather than this like wide experience and extremities or extremes, So I don't know. I thought that was really good. So she is confronting Ben and she's like, you told him all this stuff? And Ben says, no, I didn't. I would never tell anybody that. Like, that's your business. They had dated during that time. He had broken up with her when she was at that lowest point in her life, and she really held it against him for a long time. And so that's part of like why him flirting with her is like irking her so bad, because he had like abandoned her when she needed support the most, right? We could have a debate, we could have a discussion about like staying with people going through issues like this and like relying on partners to fix their problems versus medication. There's like a whole nuanced conversation to have there. Not trying to do that currently, but just acknowledging that is, he's not bad for leaving and she's not wrong for being upset about it either. Just crappy situations all the way around, right? So he says, no, I would never tell anybody about that. He had approached me. I was super hungover. I didn't really know what he was talking about. He just said that maybe you were a little frazzled or kind of all over the place. And so I had offered up the idea of the whole alcohol and burglary and not sleeping. And I don't know what's going on. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. And so she decides to open up to Ben and tell him about everything that is going on, like with the girl and the missing mascara and everything. And he believes her, asks her like who she thinks it could have been. And she's like, well, if you were playing poker with those guys and you say that they didn't leave the room and everybody was there up until, 4 a.m. and I heard the scream at like 3 o'clock, then you guys have an alibi. Obviously, it's not me. And so that leaves Cole, Tina, Alexander, Owen White, and Lady Bulmer, plus the staff. And Ben pushes back and he says, Lady Bulmer? I think that's stretching it a bit. So this mascara, who knew about it? Nielsen was the only one who did. And so he's like, okay, so maybe when you went to breakfast this morning and you were in there eating by yourself after he had left, maybe he went back to the room and took it. Like if he's the only one that knew, right? And so he says that he's going to go and do some recon and he's going to try to figure some stuff out, and they'll meet back up after lunch because the guys are going to go and take like a tour of the ship while the women go and have a spa day. And they're trying to maintain like some type of like semblance of normality, right? And so in chapter 16, that is exactly what we go into. The only other thing to note about their conversation is he's asking her, like, who do you think did it? Who do you think would have done this? And she's like, I don't know. Literally anybody could have. Like everybody's a suspect right now. Even Anne, right? Lady Bulmer, the wife with cancer. He's like, you don't think she's sick? Like she's been on chemo for 4 years. Like you really think she would do something like that? She's like, I don't know. Anybody's capable of anything. And I just thought that was interesting. I don't know if that's going to come back around. I just wanted to say it. Also, if you're watching and you happen to see a laser randomly hitting me, my cat's laser toy is on the bookshelf next to me and it's like a shelf higher than it usually is. So it's like trying to blind me currently. So don't be freaked out. I'm not in zone of a sniper. It's just the cat toy. Anyway, so I'm like, okay, so maybe is this going to come back around, right? And she also reiterates to Ben about how important this is for her to like solve this crime, because she had just suffered a crime not that long ago. And so she like kind of maybe owes it to herself. Maybe a little bit of survivor's guilt here is like just wanting to solve this and fix this and find this girl and figure all this stuff out, right? And she makes a comment that if I didn't find out, they might come for me next. And I said, oh, That's a very interesting statement. Given the quote that we got way earlier in the book about the whole burglary like happening again, or like returning burglars and whatnot, and like that statistic and that being brought up twice in the early chapters, this girl looking like her going missing, and then now this sentence here about how they might come for me next. I'm wondering if this is the, the breadcrumb trail, the foreshadowing that Ruth Ware is trying to give us. So I'm curious if this is going to like turn out to be anything definitive, or if it's just a red herring of sorts. I guess, again, we will find out together. I'm not too much farther ahead than what I'm telling you right now. And so in chapter 16, she goes on to the spa day, runs into a couple of the girls, a couple of the workers. There's more conversation, but nothing too crazy happens here other than her just feeling super, super claustrophobic. And when she goes into one of the rooms, she's by herself. She's doing like a little mud spa day thing. And so she has to get like dressed down, and then the worker comes in like the second that she lays down on the table. And she's like, well, that's really weird. Like, she's so responsive. I wonder if there's cameras. And again, I go back to this thing where I'm like, are we foreshadowing or is this paranoia? I don't know. I don't know what the truth is, right? But she makes yet another comment about cameras and spy holes and rooms and secret passages and how crazy complicated all of this is and mysterious. She gets a spa treatment, super relaxing. She ends up falling asleep. Has a nightmare about the girl drowning. Wakes up from her nightmare, hears water rushing, realizes that the shower in the like bathroom attached to her spa room is running. And she's like, that's really weird. I don't know why the worker would turn on the shower and not wake me up for it. That seems kind of odd, but okay, I guess. Gets up, goes in there to take a shower. When she looks up in the mirror, she sees "stop digging," right? Traced in the steam on the mirror. The same thing that we learned from that like first entry of the book. And that's where I just want to note too, I realized it's probably because I'm reading like a digital copy of the book that those should have been individual pages. Same with like the news articles and stuff that I've read so far and the emails, that it's not broken very well digitally. I'm sure it is in a physical copy. So I think that's where my disconnect was that I was complaining about earlier or yesterday or whatever, is just the version that I have. And I also say that because this section ends with another news article. This is from Monday, September 28th, BBC News website. Missing Briton Laura Blacklock, body found by Danish fishermen. Danish fishermen dredging in the North Sea off the coast of Norway have found the body of a woman. Scotland Yard have been called to assist the Norwegian police investigation into the discovery of a body dredged up in the early hours of Monday morning by Danish fishermen. I feel like I just read the same sentence 4 times over right there. Good Lord. Lending weight to speculation that the deceased may be missing British journalist Laura Blacklock, who disappeared last week while on holiday in Norway. A spokesperson for Scotland Yard confirmed that they have been called in to help with the investigation, but declined to comment on possible links to Miss Blacklock's disappearance. Norwegian police said that the body was that of a young Caucasian woman, and that the process of confirming the woman's identity was underway. Laura Blacklock's partner, Judah Lewis, when telephoned at his home in North London, refused to respond to the speculation except to say that he was and is devastated by Laura's continued disappearance. So that to me sounds like he does not believe that this is her body. Like he doesn't believe that that is what happened to her, which is interesting. I mean, I'm all for having hope and stuff, right? It's just, I don't know. And with that, we end part 4. Understandably, this freaks her out pretty bad, and she goes to try to call somebody to come and look at this and see this threat on the window, or on the mirror rather. But when she calls and they pick up, I did not speak. I just sat, my finger poised over the dial. Then I put the phone down with a click. The message was gone. I could see the shower room mirror from where I sat on the bed, and now that the shower was turned off and the extractor fan was still running, the steam had all but disappeared. All you could see were a couple of the runnels of water where the bottom of the 2 eyes and digging had been, and that was it. Nielsen would never believe me. And I'm like, girl, just turn back on the shower. What do you mean? If it heats back up in there, you'll still see it. It doesn't just disappear the one time. right? I'm pretty sure it'll like stay on the mirror a couple of times over because of like the oil on your fingers and stuff. Am I wildly incorrect? I'm pretty sure I remember doing that before, writing like a message on a mirror and it coming up like 3 or 4 times before it like totally disappears, or you like just completely wipe it and then it doesn't come back. So what's up with that? So she takes her shower. And so then I was like, yeah, so you took your shower. Did it steam up? Did you not see it? Am I okay? You know what? It's fine. It's cool. She's done with her spa day. She goes to leave and she asks the worker there, hey, are there any other exits or entrances to the area? The answer is no. It's literally just a one-way entrance. Like, it's only this one thing. There is technically like an emergency exit entrance that goes to the crew cabin, but they can't come in. You can only go out. And it's like an emergency thing. So like the alarms would go off if that happened. And she's like, nobody else came down. It was just like, the fellow workers and people getting spa treatments. She's like, but Ben did come around. He said he was looking for you. Did he find you? She says, no, I don't know what you're talking about. And then she leaves because she doesn't want to draw any more attention or concern or anything from the workers. So when she goes to lunch, she is eating with Chloe, Cole, and Tina. And Cole, she asks him about, this is ultimately leading to the fact that Ben is looking a little suspicious, like he might have been the one that came down there and wrote this on the mirror. So she goes up to lunch, again, trying to play it cool, just gather some information, figure some stuff out, ends up going to lunch and is eating with Chloe, Cole, and Tina. And she asks Cole about, or Chloe rather, and Cole really, she asks both of them about poker last night. Again, just trying to like corroborate. I can never say that word. Corroborate. I always say corroborate. Corroborate the story that she had heard from Ben. So she asks Chloe if she was a part of the poker game last night. She says, kind of, sort of. She was in and out, but got bored because she wasn't playing with them. So she ended up going back to her cabin. So then she's like, okay, I mean, I know this is going to sound like an odd question, but did any of the others leave the cabin? She's like, I really don't know. I can't really say. And Cole says the same thing. He's like, I was only there for about half an hour, but I do remember Ben leaving. He went to go and get his wallet. Why do you want to know? Okay, so Ben is looking awfully suspicious right now, right? She plays it off and she changes the topic because she doesn't want to answer the question, right? Again, trying to not raise suspicions while she is losing her mind over this. So instead, she asks Cole, he's the photographer guy, right, to see the pictures that he's taken so far on the trip. So she's flipping through them. It seems that there's like an intimate relationship between him and Chloe. And then she keeps going. And there is a photo, not of the ship, like this is like prior to this, of a society party. I was about to hand the camera back when my heart seemed to stutter in my chest and I froze. The screen was displaying a picture of a man eating what is this word? Canapé? Sure. Don't ask me. Actually, I have the Google look it up feature. Hey, it's almost like if an author uses a word that you don't know in a book, at least online ones, you can just highlight the word and it's like a built-in feature where it tells you the definition and then you know new words. Weird concept. I love that so much. I love learning new words. It's a small piece of bread or pastry with a savory topping, often served with drinks at a reception or formal party. Very good to know. So anyway, she freezes on this photo and her heart is beating out of her chest because the waitress in the background of the photo, she is certain that that was the woman in cabin 10. So she doesn't really want to ask Cole about the picture because, again, she doesn't want to draw attention to it, especially because last time when she brought up the mascara, it went missing. And so she doesn't want to bring this up and then have this photo disappear. So instead, she decides that she'll just talk to Cole about it later in private if she needs to. And instead, she wants to go and try and track down Ben to ask him about the spa, if he had come down there. And as she leaves that room, she quite literally runs into Ben in the hallway because he was looking for her. And she's like, hey, did you come down to the spa? And he's like, yeah, I literally just told you I was looking for you. She's like, did you leave me a message? He says, yeah, they told me that you were doing a mud wrap, so I didn't want to interrupt, so I wrote you a note. I slipped it under the door. She's like, I didn't get that. And he's like, okay, well, I left it for you. She says, no, the message I got said, stop digging, and it was written in the steam on the mirror. And he reacts like so, not like viscerally, but definitely surprised by this to the point that she believes him and believes that he didn't actually write the message. So then they begin to brainstorm. Who could have written the message? Who could have done, XYZ? They go through this like entire list, ruling out people. And she's like, wait a second, before we get any further with this discussion, what were you trying to find me about? What were you like trying to track me down so bad for? And he says, well, when I was on that tour of the ship with everybody, Archer dropped his phone. And when I picked it up for him, he had his contact open. And it was open to this woman named like Jess Finlan. And she matched the description of what you told me. And she was wearing a Pink Floyd t-shirt, which is the same t-shirt that the woman in cabin 10 was wearing when she borrowed the mascara. So this is crazy. And in her mind, she's thinking, I remembered Archer last night, his laughing face as he twisted my arm up behind my back. Chloe's disapproving, maybe the rumors about his first wife are true. Scary. Okay, so now he's definitely on the list of potentials here. She immediately tries to whip out her phone to look up Jess, but the internet on the ship is still down. She's starting to wonder if this is intentional. This seems really kind of sketchy, but Ben is saying that this is literally the maiden voyage. I'm sure they're like working out the kinks of how all of this is going to go, and they're like figuring it out. Like he doesn't really see anything malicious about it. It's just a fact of life. Again, her and Ben, gossip, trying to figure out and come to a conclusion of who could be suspicious. Who do we know? Who could have done this? And one of the names that comes up is Tina. Because Ben says, if you want to know the truth, my money would be on Tina. She's a stone cold bitch. Excuse me? Just because she's an ambitious woman? Not just that. You haven't worked with her. I have. I've met a few careerists in my time, but she's in another league. I swear she'd kill for a story or a promotion, and it's women she seems to pick on. I can't stand women like that. They're their own worst enemy. I kept silent. There was something close to misogyny in his words and tone, but at the same time, it was so uncomfortably close to what Rowan had said that I wasn't sure if I could dismiss it as just that, right? Because last night, he said something about like skinning her grandma to get a story or something. So everybody kind of has the same opinions about the others. Not looking good. She proposes the idea, well, maybe it was Alexander. They run into Alexander, who is the like extreme adventurer guy, journalist dude. I don't know. Again, name list is up there. So and as she says his name, he like magically appears. Ben tries to play off the discussion that they were having, but she decides, well, might as well come clean with it. If anybody is going to say anything, she decides to tell him, though. This is going to sound a little strange, but I heard some noises last night coming from cabin 10, the one at the end of the ship. It's supposed to be empty, but there was a woman in there yesterday. Only now we can't track her down. Did you see or hear anything last night? A splash? Any other noise? Ben said that you were up? I was indeed up, Alexander said dryly. I have trouble sleeping. So I slipped on deck for a little midnight walkies, and on my way there and back I saw quite a few comings and goings. Our dear friend Tina had a little visit from our very attentive cabin crew, and Cole was wandering around the ship at 4 a.m. And then Alexander also goes, well, and yeah, Ben, who was the woman that I saw coming out of your cabin? Sorry? Are you sure you have the right cabin? He's like, yeah, you're in cabin number 8, right? And Ben, it gives an uneasy laugh, and he's like, no, I can assure you, no one was in my cabin apart from me. And Alexander says, okay, if you say so, man. I might have had the wrong number. Oh, it's not looking good right now. And after he leaves, Lo and Ben, they're like, hey, so do you think that was just an act? Like, that guy was, like, a lot. Like, that was quite a personality that he had there. Like, that was weird. Ben says, I have no idea. I suspect it started out as a bit of a pose, but it's become second nature now. And his wife? Have you ever met her? No, but apparently she really exists. She's supposedly something of a dragon, daughter of a German count, and apparently quite the beauty in her day. They've got this incredible house in South Kensington, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, I really can't work out if he said anything useful. And Ben says, yeah, I don't think so, because he was definitely making up some stuff, because I didn't have a woman in my room last night, Lo. Like, I promise you. Like, you believe me, right? And she is like, yeah, totally. Okay, well, hey, I have to go and talk to Lord Bulmer, the boat owner guy. I have the interview. I'm supposed to go and meet with him and talk to him today about that. That she had set up like the conversation or whatever that she was going to have with Lord Bulmer, the ship owner. And Ben offers to go with her. And she just shakes her head and goes back to her cabin to get some food. And she's like, I don't really think I trust Ben internally. She's thinking this. So with this information from Alexander, right? Ben is a little bit questionable. His alibi is not solid, especially if he stepped out for those 30 minutes and like went to go and get his wallet, right? She learned that information from Cole earlier. And then now Alexander is talking about a woman being in his room. That's pretty suspicious. Cole is suspicious because he was on a walk or something, right? He was unaccounted for a little while during that time. And then he also had the photo of the woman in cabin 10. And Archer is possibly suspicious because he had the contact number of a woman in a Pink Floyd shirt who might have been the woman in cabin 10. So I feel like we're narrowing it down a little bit. Obviously, there's still some other people, but like Tina had an alibi because she was sleeping with that guy. And then the other ones were there the whole time playing the poker game. So it's the pool of suspects is like slowly narrowing. In chapter 19, the door to my cabin was locked, but inside, an open sandwich was resting on a room service tray on the dressing table alongside a bottle of mineral water. It had been there some time, judging by the runnels of condensation on the side. I wasn't hungry, but I'd had nothing since breakfast, and most of that I had thrown up, so I sat and forced myself to eat it. Okay, cool. And then she's like running through all these like crazy thoughts in her head. Cole, Alexander, and Archer had actually been in the same room as that girl, based off of that photo that she had seen on Cole's camera. And she's thinking, well, at least Archer had an alibi, but Ben, surely not. Like, if I could trust anybody, I have to be able to trust Ben, right? Just slowly, just like fretting and worrying about all of this and checking her laptop once again, hoping that she has connection because she wants to talk to Judah, and there's absolutely nothing. So she eats, she settles, decides that it's time to go up and go and see Lord Bulmer. When she gets there and she knocks on the door, he does not answer. Instead, his wife, Anne, answers. And she had very, very clearly been crying. And so she says, "Yes, can I help you?" I swallowed. "Yeah, I'm sorry for intruding. You must be tired after this spa morning." "Not particularly," she said rather shortly. I bit my lip, maybe referring to her illness hadn't been tactful. "I was hoping to speak with your husband." "Richard? He's busy, I'm afraid. Is it something I can help you with?" "I don't think so." "Well, I'm sorry. Perhaps I can wait until later. Can I tell him what this is about?" "He promised me an interview. He told me to come to the cabin this afternoon." "Oh." Her face cleared. "I am sorry. He must have forgotten. I think he's gone to the hot tub with Lars. Who's Lars?" Oh my God, I should have had all of this written down. I only did their first names, and then they keep referring to each other by their last names, which I hate, by the way, because some of their last names are pretty freaking similar. Oh no, Lars is a first name. Okay, my bad. I'm complaining because like there's like a guy, Alexander's last name is like Bolmeyer, and then we have like the freaking boat owner guy is like Bolmer, and so I had them mixed up for so long in my brain. So I'm just complaining, but I'm being stupid. Anyway, he's up in the hot tub. And so the wife, she's like, "Okay, so hopefully you can just like catch him at dinner." "Will we see you at dinner?" "I hope so. I'm feeling a little better today. I get very tired, but it seems like a capitulation to let my body win too often." "Are you still undergoing treatment?" "Not at the moment. I've finished my last round of chemotherapy for the moment anyway. I'll undergo radiotherapy when we get back, and then I suppose we'll see." "Well, best of luck, and thanks." "No problem at all." She shut the door, and I turned to walk back toward the stairs to the upper deck, feeling my face burn with a kind of shame. What an awkward interaction, right? And so she goes upstairs to go to the hot tub to, I guess, talk to them and see what's going on because she doesn't want to wait until dinner time. She gets up there. It's obviously super cold outside. Hot tub's hot. Makes a bunch of mist, bunch of steam, right? So she can like barely even see the people who are sitting in the hot tub, but they see her and they're excited. They're like, "Hey, are you feeling better? Are you better from your hangover? You come up for a dip? You wanna sit in here with us?" She says no thank you because this whole water thing's really freaking her out and she just keeps having visions of drowning. And so she says, "Richard," which is Bulmer, Lord Bulmer, he asks her to call him Richard. "I was hoping I could talk to you about something, but I'm not sure now is the right time. Could I come and see you later in your cabin?" Why wait? One thing I've learned in business, now is always the right time. What feels like prudence is almost invariably cowardice, and someone else gets in before you. Well, have a glass of something. And so he gets her champagne. He has one of the workers get her champagne and like cuts her off from talking and like trying to just like talk her into staying here and opening up and whatnot. And so eventually she asks, "Hey, I don't know if you've spoken to your head of security, Nielsen. Have you seen him today?" "Nielsen? No, he reports to the captain, not to me. Why do you ask?" And of course, she goes on to tell him a little bit. "Well, last night I had to phone him. I heard noises coming from the cabin next to my number 10." And Bulmer is looking super puzzled by this, and he says, "I thought that one was empty. The guy who was supposed to be in there canceled, didn't he?" "I went to the veranda, and when I looked out there, no one was there, but there was blood on the glass of the safety barrier." "Oh, on the safety barrier? I thought it was on the like sliding glass window or door. I like totally misunderstood that part." He says, "Good Lord, it's like something out of a novel." Okay, I hate when books say that. She's like, "Yeah, your security guard let me in. The cabin was empty and the blood on the glass had been. There was a chink and a splash, and I stopped. We all turned and looked at Cole, who was holding something over the side of the jacuzzi. His hand was dripping blood, running down his fingers onto the wooden decking." So awfully convenient that she's in the middle of trying to explain this missing situation or this like blood and drama and stuff, that Cole just happens to drop his drink, cut his hand open, and now he's bleeding, and Chloe can't stand the sight of blood, and so everybody kind of scatters and the moment gets ruined. So everybody kind of goes their separate ways after this. But Lord Bulmer does turn to her and say, "Please take a seat in the restaurant, and when I've sorted this mess out, we'll run through what you actually saw and heard," which is exactly what happens in chapter 20. By the end of the next hour, I could see why Richard Bulmer had got to where he did in life. He didn't just take me through my story. He grilled me on every single word, pinning me down on times, specifics, winkling out details I thought I didn't even know, like the exact shape of the blood splatter on the glass screen and the way it was smeared rather than sprayed across the surface. He didn't fill any gaps with speculation, didn't try to lead me on or persuade me on the details I wasn't sure of. He just sat there and fired questions at me between sips of scalding black coffee. And he also believes her. He like wholeheartedly believes her and says that he'll talk to Nielsen and he'll speak with the captain and see if they either need to like divert the ship or if they need to involve the police when they, dock in Trondheim. I guess it would be the next day now, right? This is like nighttime. I think it's like the following day is when they're going to be docking. And so to kind of get ahead of what he's going to hear from Nielsen, she opens up to Lord Bulmer about her using the antidepressants and stuff. "I was drinking the night before it happened, and I also take antidepressants. I've done so for several years, since I was about 25. I had a breakdown, and Nielsen, I think he felt..." "Are you saying that Nielsen threw doubt on your story because you take medication for depression?" "Not in so many words, but yes." Bulmer said nothing. He just regarded me impassively, and I found words tumbling out almost as if I were trying to defend Nielsen. He stops her, and he says, "I am deeply ashamed that a member of my boat's staff made you feel that way. Please believe me, Mrs. Blacklock, I take your account with the utmost seriousness." When she goes back to her cabin to get dressed for dinner, she runs into Ben yet again, gives him the update about her talking to Lord Bulmer, tells him and realizes as she's telling him all of this that he did believe her. And hopefully they are actually going to get to the bottom of this. And for the first time, she's like a little bit hopeful that something is going to happen. And she tells Ben that she is going to talk to a police officer in Trondheim, despite the fact that like it probably can't be investigated anyway because of like the whole international waters, and it would have happened when they were not anywhere near Norway. But you know what I mean? Where the hell did they leave out of? Oh, I guess she was in London, huh? Don't ask me a single question. I don't know. I barely know America. You think I know anything about the freaking European continent? I'm ignorant. I'm not gonna lie to you. But it's also been like, what, a couple days at sea now at this point? So that's quite a trek. All good news, right? Ben takes us all in. He says, awesome. He's about to let her go into her room for the night to get some sleep. But he says, "Hey, sorry, before I let you go, did you hear about what happened to Cole? His hand? Poor guy. Will he need stitches?" "I don't know. It's not just that. He managed to knock his camera into the hot tub at the same time. He's beside himself. Says he can't understand how he came to leave it so close to the edge." So that photo that she saw of that girl was on the SD card in that camera and is most likely ruined. Again, awfully coincidental, awfully convenient. Now that she's alone in her room, she reflects on everything. We get like another summary of what has happened thus far and her just kind of promising herself. Tomorrow, though, tomorrow we would be in Trondheim, and no matter what, I was going to get myself off this boat and straight to the nearest police station. It's getting a little sketchy. Lo is getting ready for dinner in her cabin now and is talking herself up, right? She's hyping herself up and is building this confidence, really enjoying this almost like investigative journalism that she is going down, right? This like path that she's gone down trying to figure out what happened to this woman. And maybe this is something she would want to do like more of. And then in like an act of defiance, she like breathes on the mirror and writes the word no. Okay. Her stewardess, I believe was the term, Carla, knocks on her door and is going to like escort her to dinner. But before they do, she tries to pull her inside and maybe get some information. And Carla completely like stops the conversation. She's like, hey, got it, understand, but Nielsen also told us that you were delusional and I really, really need this job. So I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to be in cahoots with you. Like, please just leave me out of this for the love of God. I just want to keep my job. Well, that's not good. If the whole staff, if Nielsen is just telling everybody that she's like crazy, but she does make this like offhand comment that someone might have smuggled a friend onto the boat. What an odd thing to say. So she goes to dinner, and this time around, she ends up sitting at a table next to Tina and Owen White. We haven't really talked about him very much, but he's the like really rich financer guy. And he decides that he's not going to invest into the Aurora ship situation that's going on here because it doesn't fit his like investment profile. But then Cole shows up. He's super, super, super duper drunk and starts talking about how his SD card is ruined and he lost all his photos and just how like pissed off he is about that. At the end of dinner, she continues talking to Owen and they talk about work, and then she kind of shifts it around and she ends up asking him about Solberg. He was the guy that was supposed to be in cabin number 10. And so she says, do you know him? Like, who is Solberg? Yeah, I know him fairly well. We're in the same area. He's based in Norway while my head office is back in London, but it's a small world we operate in. One gets to know all one's competitors. It must be the same in travel journalism, I imagine. So if this is more his cup of tea, then why didn't he come? Right? Because he's the one that would have had the more appropriate investment profile. He too is like a financer guy. Owen White said nothing. And for a moment, I wondered if I'd gone too far, but instead, he was just kind of thinking on it because he says there was a break-in at his house, I believe. His passport was taken, but I think that was only part of the reason he didn't come. His wife and children were home from what I understand, and they were rather shaken up. And say what you will about Scandinavian businesses, they do understand the importance of putting family first. Dear me, I advise you try not. He says this as he's like eating dessert and he makes a comment about the nougat, and then like Alexander appears and he starts talking about the nougat. So the conversation's like completely over, right? So, okay, I guess we're done talking about that. But I think it's worth noting the burglary with Solberg. But he was based out of Norway, right? So I guess that would be like a completely unrelated burglary to hers. I was like, maybe they're all about to get burglarized. Like they all ended up on like a hit list basically, and they were like working their way up the freaking guest list. But that would also be kind of crazy. That'd be some crazy international crime network. I think I'm thinking too much. But yeah, Owen and Alexander, they continue their conversation about nougat and dessert and whatever. So she decides to leave and she ends up running into Ben and confronting him, and because he's upset that she's been avoiding him. And she's like, I just don't know if I can really trust you. Obviously, he's offended by this because he's like, I can't believe that you would think I'm a murderer. Like, that's kind of shitty of you. And she decides to and she says, well, you lied. Like, you lied to me about saying that no one left that cabin. And she's like, Ben, you lied to me. You said that you didn't leave the cabin, like, playing poker and that nobody did. She's like, so I have no reason to trust you. He says that's different. She's like, it doesn't really matter. You had no reason to lie to me. She runs away from this conversation with Ben, runs into Anne Bulmer in the hallway. She looks tired, exhausted, does not look like she's doing very well. Lo asks if she's okay. She says, yeah, I'm fine. I'm just tired. Sometimes it all just seems too much. You know what I mean? Like a performance. If you excuse me, I'm heading to bed. Okay. And again, I'm like, I know there's so many characters on here of like, we have to have the red herrings and the blah, blah, blah. But I think I'm starting to hit a wall with the book. I'm not going to lie. We were doing like really good. And then I'm starting to hit a wall 60% of the way through. So hopefully this last bit kind of picks back up. Hopefully I am just speaking too early. Leaves this conversation, continues back to her room. Ben confronts her yet again in the hallway. She gets in even more of an argument with him, ends up shutting him out, goes inside, is so frustrated, she just like immediately strips and takes a bath. She gets out of the bath, goes in her bedroom, realizes her phone is missing, happens to look down at the carpet and sees a wet footprint by the veranda door. So her front door, like the main entry into her room, there's like 3 locks that you can do, but she finds out pretty quickly because she steps out onto the veranda and she looks around and then closes the door and then it opens it, goes inside, closes it. Like there's a latch on the veranda door to like keep it closed because of all the wind and everything, but it's not a lock. Like you can unlatch it from the outside as well. So anybody could have gone into her room if they were willing to kind of, I mean, it's sketchy because the privacy walls, it's a little dangerous, but if you were willing to climb it, literally anybody could have come into her room just now and stole her phone. So this is not good, especially again for somebody who just got freaking burglared before she came here. Realizing that her room was not safe and never had been is a huge blow to the gut. And there's absolutely no possibility of sleep now. Anyone could have access to the empty suite. And from there, it was just a short climb across the glass divider into mine. The truth was, I could draw the bolt across my cabin door as much as I liked, but any member of the staff could open the empty cabin with their pass key. And as for the guests, I thought again to the layout of the cabins. To the right of mine was Archer's, ex-Marine with an upper body strength that made me wince when I remembered it. And to the left was the empty cabin. And beyond that, curving around the ship to the other side of the corridor was Ben Howard. Ben, who had deliberately cast doubt on my story with Nielsen. Ben, who had lied about his alibi. And he had known about the photos on Cole's camera before I did. His words came back to me as if in a dream. He was showing them to us over lunch. He had some great pics. Ben Howard, the one person on board I thought I could trust. But I pushed that thought away, focusing on the phone. In the stupidity and daring of coming in to steal it while I was in the bath. He had risked a lot to take it, and the question was, why? Why now? But I thought I knew. The answer was Trondheim. As long as the boat's internet was down, the perpetrator had nothing to worry about. I couldn't make a call to land without going through Camilla, which is like the hostess lady. But once we started to draw closer to land, I hugged the cushion harder to my chest and thought of Trondheim and Judah and police. All I had to do was make it until dawn. This is so scary. And then we get this really detailed whodunit web forum, a discussion place for armchair detectives. Monday, 28 September, I am Sherlocked says, hey guys, anyone else been following on this Lorna Blacklock case? Looks like they've found a body. Back and forth, back and forth. Of course, speculation on what happened, how there's like a bunch of people go missing every year on cruise ships. There's stuff about how there's like somebody who's anonymous and they're like, I'm a family friend and I know about her and I know that she was taking medication for depression. So if I had to guess, I think she disappeared on purpose. Like, I think she jumped off the cruise ship intentionally. And they're like, okay, yeah, sure. And we're just supposed to believe you, anonymous poster. And then Judah comes in, supposedly, right? The username is like Judah Lewis. And he's like, you guys are saying all this like stupid stuff. I can't believe any of you go and get a hobby, you pieces of crap, blah, blah, blah. She was taking medication for anxiety, not for depression. And if you actually knew her, you would know that. And you guys need to leave it alone. And then an admin comments and they say, yeah, we agree with, Mr. Lewis, like this thread is going to be closing. Somebody comments immediately after and they're like, okay, so what about this Norwegian police scanner blog that's reporting a positive identification of Laura's body? And the admin responds and says, we are now closing this thread. Uh-oh, that is not very good. And we go into part 6, chapter 22. Lowe did, in fact, not really make it through the night necessarily, because chapter 22 opens with her waking up in a tiny, tiny cabin in like the lower decks of the ship. Like no window, just the door, by herself. Super claustrophobic, super not good. So she had woken up to somebody knocking on the door repeatedly, like absolutely nonstop. She didn't think she would be able to fall asleep, but she did. Wakes to this knocking, looks through the peephole. It's the woman from cabin 10. What the hell? And then she just starts walking down the hall. So Lo comes out, goes to follow her. She's like going through all these different corridors, ends up down a bunch of stairs, ends up, putting in a pin to get into the like employees only area. Lo like chases after her, is able to catch the door right before it closes. And as she goes through the doorway, she gets hit over the head. And then now she is woken up in this room. She is tried to get out. There's really not any way to open up this door, right? She was able to figure it out before when she got burglared and locked in her room, but this one does not seem that there will be an escape. She still thinks it's Tuesday at this point, which is the day that they should be landing in Trondheim, but she doesn't really know. She's just assuming because she's down near the engines and she still hears them going, so they haven't gotten there yet, right? And her biggest fear is that when they do get there and they dock, that all the other guests are going to assume that she just left and decided to stay in town. And depending on who's guilty or not guilty, they're going to go right along with it and just assume that she didn't want to get back on the ship, right? Or Ben, if he is innocent and heard her, he's going to assume that she just went and talked to the police and saved it to the police. Even even the owner guy, Lord Bulmer, he'll probably make the same assumption that she just decided to get off the ship and go to the police and not get back on it after all of this absolute chaos. So she's just worried that nobody is going to know that she's missing and nobody is going to look for her, and she's just going to end up like rotting in this room. She's freaking out, claustrophobic, crazy headache, eventually passes back out. And chapter 23 is, quite frankly, Lo just spiraling into madness, being in this like trapped room with absolutely no concept of like time passing, and also not taking her medication. So she's having like brain zaps and like this crazy like withdrawal headache and not feeling good because she hadn't taken it the last like 2 days with how crazy her hangovers were and how chaotic that just everything has been. She hasn't taken them already for a period of time, and then now not having them, it's getting even worse. So she's having all of these like flashbacks and horrific like nightmares, and just nothing good is happening in this like room that she's locked in. But they are coming around every now and then and like giving her a plate of food, and that's the extent of it. And it's basically like prison food equivalent. She rolls over just in time as the door like quickly opens and closes, and then there's like a tray of food left on the floor for her. And she's sitting here and she's just like racking her brain through all of this of like, why is this happening? If the girl in cabin 10 is alive, why would they try to trap me in here? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And she's like, and also if the woman in cabin 10 that I saw, she technically, like, she had the pass keys. She must be in on this. She must have, like, lured me down here. So maybe she's, like, an accomplice to something, or she's doing it. And then she must have had an accomplice to have the room all cleared out and all this stuff happening this way. And surely if she is actually supposed to be on this ship, somebody would have recognized her, and me asking about it the last couple of days. Why go to such lengths to hide on board a ship to stop me from asking questions? If the girl had died, the cover-up made sense, but she was alive and well. It must be who she was that was important. Someone's wife, someone's daughter, lover, someone trying to get out of the country with no questions asked. I thought of Cole and his ex-wife. She was the one that had cheated on him. Archer and his mysterious Jess. I thought of the way the photograph had disappeared from the camera. None of it made sense. And so she's like, no, the woman in cabin 10 definitely had to have been the person who ambushed me in the hallway. Like, she's the one that must have like knocked me out and put me in here. Something had happened in that cabin, and whatever it was, I was not supposed to have witnessed it. I tried to think through the possibilities that would mesh with the scream and the blood and the cover-up. A fight, a blow to the nose, a yell of pain, a gush of blood as the person ran to the veranda to try to bleed out into the sea, leaving that smear on the glass. No deaths. And if the girl was some kind of stowaway, that could explain why they had covered it up, moved her to a different location, cleaned away the blood. But other parts of the picture didn't fit. If the fight had been unintended and unpremeditated, how had they cleared the cabin so fast? I had seen the girl in the cabin the day before, the room behind her cluttered with clothes and belongings. If the fight had been unplanned, there was no way that she would have stripped and cleaned that suite in the few minutes it had taken me to ring Nielsen. No, whatever happened in there had been planned. They had cleared it beforehand, meticulously cleaned it, and I was beginning to suspect it was not by chance that it was number 10 that had been empty. No, one cabin had been left empty deliberately, and it had to be 10. That was the very last cabin on the ship. Its veranda was not overlooked, and there was no other cabins to see something floating past, disappearing in the foam of the ship's wake. Someone had died. I was sure of it, just not that girl. But then who? I tossed and turned in the darkness, listening for any sounds above the roar of the engine and trying to answer the questions churning uneasily inside. My brain felt fogged and thick, but I kept coming back to that question. Who had died? Chapter 24, as more time passes, they're still delivering food to her, but every time it's like the power has been out, so there hasn't been a light in there for her to be able to see the assailant, to like confirm if it was this woman or not. And after one of the times that she gets her food and she has the tray, she decides to break it and to make like a shank. And so the next time that they come to collect the tray, she's hiding around the corner, grabs the girl, pulls her in, ends up stabbing her in the forearm. They get into this like whole brawl. Eventually, the girl is stronger than her, especially after like days of captivity and just like, you know what I mean, the situation that she's in. She gets like overtaken and they talk it out like a tiny bit. Like she gets out of the room and then Lo continues confronting her. Sees her in the light at this point, confirms that it is in fact the woman from cabin 10 that has been feeding her and has her locked in this room. Woman from cabin 10 makes some really ominous comments about how he will never let you out of here. And we tried to warn you in the spa, and Lo just asks for her antidepressants so she can stop having these crazy headaches. And the girl agrees as long as the attacks stop. She's like, I'll get you whatever, just don't like freaking hurt me again. And it's pretty clear that cabin 10 lady is scared of this like he and is like being put up to this by this he person. And so Lo is trying to figure like, okay, so I wonder who that could be then. And she comes to the realization that it has to be Ben. Like he's the only one that had access down to the spa area, right? Like he must have lied about the whole note thing. Like he must have written on the mirror. And all of his like alibis that he had for all of these other situations didn't check out. Like all of them fell through. So that's got to be what it is. But she's like, what would his motive, like, what would his motive possibly freaking be? I'm not sure if maybe it's day 3 of Kaylee recording, speaking, or maybe just how much this book let me down, but I'm incredibly disappointed. Like I said, I kind of indicated it before. I was like really invested in this and I thought the book was really interesting, albeit maybe a little slow, but I was kind of into how detailed all of these different people were that were on the cruise ship. Everything that I'm about to tell you as we wrap up this final bit of the book, these last 10 chapters, like, I don't even have any words. I'm just like immediately expressing my frustration with this. So knowing that, right, knowing how I feel about it, I would love for you to maybe come up with some thoughts, some predictions, comment them down below. You know what I mean? I would love to hear what you think if this is your first time hearing this story, and, you know, what you think the quote unquote like plot twist is, right? How do you think this is going to end? Let me know. Okay, so we were in chapter 25. She is, you know, being held captive at the bottom of this cruise ship in this like little dinky room, being fed randomly. She shanked the lady from cabin 10 in order to escape, but then it turned into her just kind of bartering to get her medication back. And so when we go into chapter 25, somebody is knocking at the door. It's the woman from cabin 10, and this time she does bring her a pill for her to take. She also brings her a copy of The Bell Jar by Sylvia Plath for her to read to pass time, which, I mean, yeah, thanks, but good freaking God, of all the books you could have brought me, that feels a little extreme. Like, that doesn't bode very well for what's happening between us. And so Lo is like, okay, well, I don't really stand a chance of getting out of here at all unless I appeal to this woman. Nobody's going to realize I'm gone. Nobody really knows me that well other than Ben. And if he's in on this, then I'm not going to be saved. Like Tina and Alexander and all these other people, they don't know me like that. So whatever these people say, they'll believe. And so she's like, I have to try to win over this woman. And also, she's kind of worried about her well-being and her future of her life, understandably so. So she says, hey, what are you going to do with me? Like, what's up? The woman just gets this like kind of blank, dark expression. And she's like, it's not up to me. Oh, awesome. That's such a reassuring feeling. The woman's about to leave and she ends up looking in the mirror. Yeah, there's a mirror in here. There's like a bathroom, I guess. It's like a little crew cabin area, I believe. So it's just like kind of a little dinky thing. Like there's a shower and a bathroom. Honestly, it's not described very well. I'm not going to lie to you. So I thought it was just like maybe a little closet or something. But I guess it's an actual like full on, I don't know, living quarters of some sort for the workers. And so she's in here, whatever. There's a whole bathroom situation. So cabin 10 lady looks in the mirror. She says, oh my God, I have blood on my face. I have to get this off. If he sees that I have blood on my face, he's going to be pissed. And she's like scared of this he guy. And it's just being reiterated. So she goes over, she washes the blood off of her face, but in doing so, ends up also washing off her makeup. Lo looks at this and she realizes the woman in cabin 10 is in fact Lady Ann Bulmer, the cancer wife. Oh my God, what a horrible descriptor. The boat owner guy's wife that has cancer, right? The real sickly one that we've only seen a few times throughout this, right? 4 years of chemo treatment, not feeling very good. Loki, come on, man. Everybody was surprised that she was here in the first place. Her. Woman in cabin 10 was just her wearing a wig and some thinly drawn eyebrows, apparently. Okay. And so she continues looking in the mirror. And then she looks at Lo, sees Lo's reaction, realizes that Lo recognizes her, and she just like shrugs and then just like storms out of the room. Oh, okay. So when we go into chapter 26, she's thinking about all of this and she's racking her brain and she's like, maybe it isn't Ben that's behind this. Like the he that she must be afraid of is Lord Bulmer. Like he actually must be in on all of this, but I don't know why. I don't know why any of this would matter. Like, why was there the splash over the side? Why was she keeping hidden? Why was she in cabin 10 in the first place? Why anything, right? None of it makes any sense. And she's just left with more questions than answers, which is not really a surprise given her situation. But she decides that she's going to, take a shower. She's going to clean herself up. And she really, especially now, has to like lock in to try to appeal to Anne in order to get out of this situation. And so she's like racking her brain about what she could possibly, like, what do I know about her? What could I say? All she knows is that Anne is super wealthy. Her parents had a bunch of money. She, changed schools a bunch growing up, and there's not really much that they could connect on. And as she's thinking through all of this, she's like, no, the woman that I met at the dinner on the first night, she was really ill and she was moving really slowly. And this woman that I've just met just now, like she's quick-witted and she, has a smart mouth and she moves fast. And like, there's like a pep to her step almost that like the Anne that I met didn't have. And she's like, oh my God, this really is two separate people. And she's thinking about it and she's like, yeah, because the sickly Anne that I met, I really hope I'm not like sounding rude or like disparaging to people. I'm not trying to sound that way. But that's how it's portrayed in the book. And whatever. Sorry if I sound like a dick. I'm not trying to be. She's like, whenever I saw Anne and she was sick and she wasn't feeling well and I noticed her like pitch black eyes. But then this Anne that I'm talking to now has gray eyes. I was like, girl, before you couldn't even recollect a goddamn thing about the woman in cabin 10. And now you're talking to me that you remember a woman's eye color from a week and a half ago, a couple days ago. I don't know, however long it's been. I'm like, I don't believe you for a second. Okay. I mean, you're not wrong. Okay. So she's like, so that means that this woman is impersonating Anne. So this has to be some other thing. The day we set sail, she had been waiting for the word, for instruction from Richard to clear her cabin and to get ready. I thought back to what I had seen over her shoulder, a silk robe strewn across the bed, makeup, Veet in the bathroom, waxing strips. Christ, how could I have been so stupid? She had been shaving and ripping off her body hair, ready to impersonate a woman with cancer. But instead of Richard with his prearranged knock, I had come along, inadvertently given the signal, and she'd seen me instead. I would love to know, upon looking into a woman's room briefly, you see like a razor and some wax strips and you're going to assume that she's pretending to have cancer. In what universe would you have ever came to that conclusion? In what universe would this have ever logically been your fault and your responsibility to clock? Like, yeah. Hey, totally. You're the dumbass, actually. Actually, you're stupid for not realizing this. Totally. This is all self-inflicted. So when the woman in cabin 10 eventually reappears to give Lo some more food, again, how much time has passed? I don't know. I would love to know. I would love to tell you. I'm actually even more frustrated with the vagueness of these dates and these timelines than I am with just straight up 2 timelines. Hey, turns out there's a third worse option actually to like singular story, dual timeline, and then this, whatever the fuck this is. I need to calm down. So anyway, woman comes in, gives her some food. Lo apologizes for attacking her, asks for another book to read because she's like, yeah, I read the bell jar. Thanks. And there's no comments about that. And I felt like if we were going to bring up specifically the bell jar, if you're going to cite such a specific piece of literature that is related to the mental health that has been explained and experienced by the main female character, and you're not going to have a conversation about it, you're not going to talk about like some parallels between those experiences, Esther and this lady. No, we're just going to just drop it in here and not have any discussion. Love that. What a waste of my fucking time. She says, I'll see what I can do and I'll try to get you some food, but I don't know, it might take a little bit. I think people are getting suspicious. So if I don't get you stuff tonight, I'll bring you some extra food in the morning. Okay, awesome. As the woman goes to leave, Lo, all of a sudden, she's like, hey, what's your name? She turns around. She's like, excuse me? And Lo's like, yeah, I know that you're not Lady Anne. You guys have different eye colors. What's your name? And the woman is a little freaked out. She goes like completely blank expression. And then all of a sudden she gets like this fury that washes over her. And Lo decides in this minute that she's going to push back. And she's like, no, seriously, like you can just tell me, like if I'm going to die here anyway, what's it matter? Like who am I going to tell? She says, fuck, you're digging your own grave. Do you not get that? I nodded, but I had known that for a few days now. Whatever the girl tried to tell herself, whatever I tried to tell myself, there was only one way I was leaving this room. I don't think Richard will let me leave, I said. You know that, right? So name or no name, it doesn't really matter. Her face beneath the expensive headscarf was white. When she spoke, her voice was bitter. You fucked it all up. Why couldn't you just leave well enough alone? I was trying to help. I was trying to help you. Do you not get that? Why? Why? You barely knew me. Why did you have to keep digging? Because I knew what it was like to be you. I know what it's like to wake up in the night afraid for your life. But that's not me. She snarled. She stalked across the little cabin. Close up, I could see that her eyebrows had just the faintest brush of regrowth. It was never me. It will be, though. When Richard's got Anne's money, what do you think his next move will be? Making himself safe. Shut up, you've got no idea what you're talking about. He's a good man. He's in love with me. That's bullshit and you know it. If he was in love with you, he wouldn't be beating you up because she has like bruises and stuff over like on her collarbone and some random spots and stuff. He wouldn't be beating you up and forcing you to dress up like his dead wife. What do you think this charade is all about? Being with you? It's not about you. If it was, he would have gotten a divorce and walked off into the sunset with you, but she'd have taken his money with her. She was an heir to a billion-pound dynasty. Those kinds of people don't risk marriage without a prenup. So she's like, shut up, shut up, shut up. And like, they just have this like yelling match until the woman eventually just like storms away. And Lo realizes, hey, maybe that wasn't the best idea. Hey, maybe that wasn't a good idea if I was trying to make a friend and get an ally in this situation to help me get out. Maybe I should have not gone balls to the wall accusations and like crushing her dreams. Girl, you had days to think about this. You had hours at least between when she delivered your last meal to this one, and you didn't think of a better confrontation plan? You didn't think of a better nothing? Okay, that's fine. Time passes. Woman doesn't return. Again, there's no like clocks or light or anything. She has no like indicator of how much time has passed, but a lot has passed. Obviously, she has missed dinner, so she's like afraid that she offended this woman so much that now she's going to starve to death. And the woman, I think the woman also took the book with her, so she's just here with nothing. And so she's like racking her brain and just trying to think of things, right? The time that she met Judah, the layout of her childhood home, which I thought was a really interesting touch. I really liked the idea of losing your mind so much or having to distract yourself so much that you like retrace the homes or the rooms that you've been in and the buildings you've been in. I don't know why that like hit something in me so much, but I really, really enjoyed that part of it. Eventually, she ends up falling asleep. When she wakes back up, there's something wrong in the room and she can't put her finger on it because she's looking around and she's like, everything's totally normal. I'm not sure what's happening, but something's wrong. And then she realizes the hum of the engines is gone. The engines are off, which means that the boat has docked, assumably in Trondheim at this point. So then I'm like, so if they were landing the next day and then you were here, how many times has this woman come down to feed you? Are you getting breakfast, lunch, and dinner? You're being held captive and you're getting 3 meals a day? Literally no concept of time. I don't understand. But I think this is when they land, dock, in Trondheim. And so she's realizing, okay, the engines are off, people are getting off, I'm screwed. Like, this is the moment that they're going to pretend that I just disappeared. Like, she's like banging on the walls and screaming. And she's like, I know they can't hear me though. Like, this is a waste of time, but this is like her one shot to at least try. And the section ends with an email from Judah to Judah and Lo's parents. And then he BCC'd 38 recipients. Sent Tuesday, 29 September, subject, Lo, an update. Dear all, I'm very sorry to be sending this news in an email, but I'm sure you'll understand that these last few days have been very difficult and we've had trouble responding to everyone's concern and inquiries. It's inquiries, but it's with an E. Is that like the whole gray with an A is American and gray with an E is English? Is like inquiries with an E English, or is that different than an inquiry with an I? Take a shot every time I say inquiry. Up until now, we didn't really have anything concrete to share, and this has resulted in a lot of hurtful speculation on social media. However, we have now received some news. Unfortunately, it's not what we hoped for. And Lo's parents, Pam and Alan, have asked me to send this update to her close friends and immediate family on behalf of them as well as myself, as some details seem to have been leaked to the press already, and we didn't want anyone to find this out from the internet. There is no easy way to say this. Early this morning, Scotland Yard asked me to identify some photographs they received from the Norwegian police team handling the case. They were photographs of clothes. The garments are Lo's. I recognized them immediately. The boots in particular are vintage and very distinctive and unmistakably hers. We are obviously in pieces at this discovery, but we are holding and waiting to find out what the police can tell us. This is all we know at present, as the body is still in Norway and the Norwegian police have not shared any information on when we may be able to see it. In the meantime, we would please ask that you use your discretion in talking to the media. If you have anything to add to the investigation, I can give you the names of the officers at Scotland Yard handling the case at the UK end. We also have a family liaison officer who is helping us deal with media inquiries. But some of the stories that are running are upsetting and untrue, and we'd like to ask you all for your help in respecting Lo's privacy. We are just devastated at this turn of events and trying to come to terms with what it means. So please bear with us and know that we'll update you as soon as we can. And with that, we go into part 7. Chapter 29 is similar to chapter, 24, 23, where Lo is left alone for an extended period of time and is just like spiraling inside of her head and repeating the entirety of the book to us and just like completely reliving and repeating herself as she is starving and not medicated. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to gain from it. At this point, I'm getting tired of it. I'm not going to front with you. So blah, 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 blah. She's going through all of this stuff, and eventually the girl does return. Comes in, gives her food, apologizes for not coming back. Some stuff had come up, whatever. They chit-chat a little bit. She goes to leave, and then finally she says that her name is Carrie. Carrie? Carrie, what the heck? What the heck, dude? And she also tells us that it's Saturday the 26th. The email that I just read you from Judah is from the 29th. Again, I actually hate what's happening right now. Other things to note about their interaction, as brief as it is. Lo had like passed out because she stood up too quickly when she heard Carrie approaching the like cabin that she's in. And so she ended up like standing up too fast, passed out back on the bed. Carrie comes into the room, sees her passed out, freaks out. She like comes running over to her and she's like shaking her and she's like, please, 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 please wake up. She obviously doesn't want to hurt Lo, right? Like she's doing everything she can. And assumably she's like sneaking food down here to take care of her. So it definitely seems like she's like an unwilling accomplice to what's happening. And also she brings Lo a copy of Winnie the Pooh. There's a whole ass library on one of these floors, and you brought me the bell jar in Winnie the Pooh? I'm gonna shank your ass again. Kidding, of course. I would never. I don't support violence. I'm so mad. So Lo is like, I loved this book growing up. Like, I know every single word to this. Like, I probably know it too intimately, but Winnie the Pooh was like my favorite story. It's relevant, I promise. I don't tell you things that aren't relevant. So Carrie leaves. Lo is again left to her own devices and racking her brain yet again of like, where is Bulmer? Bulmer, who had lived through his wife's chemo, counting her money and planning her death, only to be cheated out of it at the 11th hour. What do you mean cheated out of it at the 11th hour? Oh, I guess because maybe she had ruined their plans or something to kill her. Yeah, because I guess she caught them. So I guess that's what she's going in with at this moment, is she's like, oh, he meant to kill the wife, and then I saw them kill the wife. Like, it must have been Anne that got thrown over the balcony, and that's who died. It wasn't this lady. And that's why she's been impersonating, or was, you know what? I don't know. Don't look at me. You're picking up what's happening, right? Maybe. If not, I'll tell you in 1 second. Anne's about to give us the whole lowdown in a minute, so I'll explain it to you shortly. But where was he? Had he left the ship, establishing an alibi while Carrie starved me to death? I wasn't sure. He had taken good care to isolate himself far away from Anne's death. I couldn't imagine he would allow himself to be implicated in mine. As I was pondering this, I heard the slow grinding roar of the ship's engine start up. It hummed for a while, and then I felt the whole boat rock and shift. I knew that we were moving again, out of the Bergen harbor, the darkness swallowing the ship as we sailed out into the North Sea. So for context, we did London, we went way up north and get to Trondheim to be able to see the Aurora Borealis, and then that's the day that she went missing, was the day that they were supposed to dock, on the 22nd. She's been held captive for 4 days, apparently, because it's like almost midnight, that they somehow at some point, I guess, landed, came back on, drove, sailed over to Bergen. And then now some time has passed being at port here, pathways and traveling through this cruise. It's frustrating because I feel like we could have been so much more clear with all of this, but that's okay, I guess. Chapter 30 opens with, the engine had stopped again when I woke up, but I could feel the shifting mass of water all around us. Lo has absolutely no idea where they are, how many days have passed, what time of day it is, nothing. And she's worried that if they are in the fjords, the water is so deep there that no amount of dredging would recover her body. Anyway, Carrie comes to the room with some more food and she apologizes. Again, kind of like reiterating how suspicious the staff is getting, that she's like stealing these portions. And I'm like, I thought we had a bunch of money. What do you mean? What do you mean the staff gives a single fuck about how much you rich people are eating? You're telling me they didn't have that stocked up like crazy? You're telling me that they're passing any judgment on you? Are you not paying them enough? Like, I don't want, like, okay, it's cool. So Lo asks for some clarification. And she says, yeah, I know, I'm sorry it's not more. Now that the passengers and crew have all left, it's gotten harder to take food without making the cook suspicious. The crew have left? Not all of them. The captain's still here, along with some of his people, but all the passenger-facing staff have gone into Bergen with Richard for some kind of team-building review thing. Richard, so Bulmer wasn't on the boat. Maybe that explained Carrie's change in attitude with Bulmer gone. So did they dropped everybody off at the port, left the port, now they're just floating in the middle of the fucking North Sea for a couple of days? For a little while? Why would you not stay in port? Or I guess she has no concept of what's happening, so maybe all they did was like move a little bit. What are we doing? I need to stop looking at it. You know what? Anyway, it doesn't matter. Carrie stays in the room long enough with Lo that she wants to ask who killed her. Being like, who killed the real Anne? But suddenly I couldn't bring myself to voice that question. I was too scared that it might be Carrie. And anyway, my best hope was in persuading her that she wasn't a killer, not reminding her that she'd done it once and could do it again. What did you say to my relatives? I mean, and the other passengers? Do they think I'm in Trondheim? Yes, I put my wig back on and left the boat with your passport. I picked a time when the stewards were all preparing breakfast and it was a member of the sailing crew on duty at the gangway. Luckily, you didn't go on a tour of the bridge, you didn't meet any of them, and luckily we both got dark hair. You've got a wig. You don't have dark hair. You're bald. You shaved it. You got a dark wig is the answer. And lucky we've both got dark hair. I don't know what I would have done if you were a blonde, and I don't have a blonde wig. And then I rejoined the boat as Anne and hoped they wouldn't notice that Anne got on but never actually got off. Lucky, it wasn't the word that I would have chosen, so the paper trail was complete. A record of me leaving the boat and never returning. No wonder no police had turned up to search the vessel. What was the plan? I asked quietly. If I hadn't seen you, what was supposed to happen? I would still have gotten off at Trondheim, but this time as Anne, and then I would have put my wig on, changed my clothes, drawn on my eyebrows, and disappeared into a crowd, just as another backpacker. The trail would have ended in Trondheim, an unstable woman facing death, disappearing without a trace, and then, when everything had died down, Richard and I were going to meet, and we were going to fall in love publicly this time, and do it all over again for the cameras. Okay? Keep that in mind, that is the plan, that they were going to do. Why did you do it, Carrie? I don't understand. Nor do I sometimes. It wasn't supposed to be like this. So tell me. We met at Magellan. I was a waitress, and while I was there, I was trying to make it as an actress, and he just swept me off my feet, I suppose. It was more like something out of 50 Shades. Penniless me and him, falling in love, showing me this life that I'd never dreamed of. I knew he was married, of course. He was completely honest about that. Okay, fucking ew, by the way. So we could never see each other in public, and I couldn't tell anyone about him. Their marriage had been over almost before it started. She was horribly cold and controlling, and they lived separate lives. Her in Norway and him in London. He hasn't had an easy life, you know. His mother left when he was a baby, and his father died when he was barely out of school. It seemed so unfair that Anne, the person who should have loved him most of all, couldn't even bear to be with him. But she was dying, and he couldn't bring himself to divorce the woman with just months to live. It seemed too cruel, and he just kept talking about afterwards when she died we would be together. One night, he had this idea. He said that I should dress up as his wife and go to the theater so that we could be out in public together. He gave me some of her kimonos, and I watched a film of her talking so I knew how to carry myself and how to act. And I hid my hair under a swimming cap with one of her scarves on top, and we played it off. We sat in a box, just the two of us, and drank champagne, and oh, it was amazing. Like a game fooling everyone. We did it once or twice, only when Anne was passing through London so people wouldn't be suspicious. And then a few months later, he had this idea. It seemed crazy at first, but he's like that, you know? Nothing is impossible. He truly makes you believe that. He said that he had this press trip coming up, that Anne was due to be there for the first night, but that she was getting off the boat late that night and going home to Norway. And he said, what if I stayed on and pretended to be her? He could smuggle me on board and we could be a real couple, together in public for a whole week. He promised me I could pull it off. He said that no one on board had actually met her, and he would make sure no one photographed me so there wouldn't be any chance of getting caught afterwards. The boat was stopping in Bergen at the end of the trip, so people would just assume that Anne had stayed on for a few extra days, and then I could change into my own clothes on the last and go home as me. He arranged for one of the other guests to not turn up, so there was an empty cabin, and he said the only thing was I'd have to cut my hair to be convincing, but it seemed to be worth it to be with him. So you wouldn't be a real couple. You'd be staying on pretending to be his wife, which again, I'm going back to this whole thing of like, she was just gonna go back to Norway and you guys were just gonna like hang out together on the boat for a couple of days, you pretending to be her and like, okay. But you were gonna dress up as Anne and leave the boat and then act like she just disappeared into Bergen. So was the plan was to kill her the whole time? Because why would you stage her disappearing, the sickly woman just disappearing into the cold random town in Norway? I guess the assumption that she would have just gone home to Norway and then just went missing afterward. But then you have everybody on the boat. Thinking that she's there. This doesn't make any sense. And also, he arranged for one of the guests to not show up. You remember when she was talking to that one guy earlier, Lars or something, about the guy who didn't show up to cabin 10 because he had been robbed? Did he actually get robbed? Was that a staged thing? Was that a lie we were telling everybody? Did Homeboy hire a guy to rob him to make him not come? Is that the same guy that was hired to rob Lo for some reason? Is that all just a red herring? Did the robberies actually genuinely have nothing to do with anything in this book? I don't know. Let's find out. On the first night, I was just getting into my clothes as Anne when Richard came to the cabin. He was beside himself. He said that Anne had found out about the affair and had gone mad, lashing out at him. He pushed her away to try to protect himself, and she had stumbled and hit her head on the coffee table. When he tried to revive her, he found that she was dead. He didn't know what to do. He said that if there was a police investigation, my presence on board would come out and no one would believe his version of the fight. He said that both of us would be persecuted, him as a murderer and me as an accessory to a premeditated plot. He said it would come out. The fact that I'd been dressing up as Anne. He said that Cole had a photograph of me in Anne's clothes. He persuaded me. The only thing to do was to tip Anne's body overboard and carry on with the plan. If she went missing in Bergen, nothing could be traced back to us, so it wasn't supposed to happen like this. Objections crowded to the tip of my tongue, screaming to be unleashed. How could Anne have got off the boat on the first night when we weren't due to arrive in Norway until the following day? And how could she have gotten off without her passport, without the crew knowing that she'd left? It didn't make sense. The only explanation was that Richard had never been intending for Anne to walk down the gangplank of her own volition, and Carrie must know that herself. She wasn't stupid, but I'd seen this kind of willful blindness before. Women who insisted their boyfriends weren't cheating in the face of all the evidence. People working for horrendous employers who'd persuaded themselves that they were just following orders and doing what was necessary. There seemed to be no limit to the capacity of people to believe what they wanted to see. And if Carrie had argued herself into accepting Richard's twisted versions of the facts in the face of all logic, she wasn't likely to listen to me. Wow, great. So insightful. And then my only note was like, but you were right, and it was weird to change because, like, I guess they didn't maybe change the track to Trondheim, but I'm pretty sure I read a quote where they were arriving a day later than she had anticipated, and they changed the route, didn't they? Wasn't that like a whole conversation that she had with a guy earlier in the book? And then she was like, oh my God, I'm at the whims of rich people, and you realize how out of control you are with your life. So was the plan for them to actually dock somewhere on the first night for her to get off? But then they changed the plans because she ended up dying. So then they had to go to Trondheim to sail through the North Sea so they could dump her body in really deep water. Was that what the plan was? Or does none of this make any sense at all? Honestly, I'm getting my head starting to hurt thinking about it too hard. So I'm going to keep going. So she listens to Carrie say all of this, though. Give this explanation of like, it was an accident. It wasn't planned. None of this should have happened, and you shouldn't have seen me, and she shouldn't have died, and blah, 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 yet again. And instead of, I don't know, pushing back or saying, kind of calling out the faults in this logic or anything, instead she again asks, hey, what's going to happen to me? Carrie says, fuck, I don't know. Stop asking me, please. He's going to kill me, Carrie. Please, you have to get both of us out of here. You know you can. I'll get the evidence. I'll say that you saved me. First, she broke in, face hard. I'd never betray him. I love him. You don't seem to get that. And second, even if I went along with you, I'd end up on a murder charge. But if you testified against him, no, that's not going to happen. I love him and he loves me. I know he does. He's going to kill you, Carrie. You know that, right? Like, he's going to kill me and then kill you. This is your last chance. I love him so much that you helped him kill his wife. I didn't kill her. She was already dead. At least that's what he said. He left her body in the cabin in a suitcase, and I wheeled it to the cabin. And I wheeled it to cabin 10 when you were all at dinner. All I had to do was throw the whole thing over the side while he was playing poker, but the case was incredibly heavy. I think he'd weighted it down with something. I banged it against the door frame, getting it into the suite. The lid sprang open, and that's when, oh God, I don't know anymore. Her face, it was all bloody, but just for a second, I thought her eyes fluttered. Jesus, you mean you didn't throw her over alive, did you? I don't know. I screamed. I couldn't help it. I touched the blood on her face and it was cold. Okay, also, P.S. by the way, period, pause here. If that is the scream that Lo heard, that is a scream that woke her up at 3 a.m, right? And then she heard the body going overboard. This girl just said she did this at dinner time. There's a big old difference. Between dinner time and 3 a.m. Just would like to make that clear to everybody here. I screamed. I couldn't help it. I touched the blood on her face and it was cold. If she'd been alive, the blood would have been warm, wouldn't it? I thought perhaps I just imagined it, or it was some kind of involuntary movement. They say that happens, you know, in morgues and stuff. I didn't know what to do. I just shut the case. But I couldn't have fastened it properly because when I threw it over the side, the catch burst open and I saw her face in the water. She's like, I haven't been able to sleep ever since. She was supposed to die at home in her own bed. Was he going to kill her there? What do you mean? Because the cancer? Was she on hospice? Y'all didn't say that. I thought she was recovering. And so instead, Lo, comfortingly, trying to, and urgently, is saying, hey, whatever happened in Anne's death, you can stop this now. Can you really live with killing me? One death on your conscience has driven you half crazy, Carrie. Don't make it two. I'm begging you for both of us. Please let me go. I won't say anything, I swear. I'll tell Judah that I got off in Trondheim and must have blacked out. No one would believe me anyway. They didn't believe me when I said a body went over the side. Why would this be any different? And she's like, I'll think about it. And then as she's going to leave, she ends up kicking that copy of the Winnie the Pooh book, okay? She looks down. Something in her face changed. She picked it up, rifling the pages with her free hand. I loved that book as a kid, she said. My mom used to call me Tigger, she said. She used to say, you're like Tigger. You are, no matter how hard you fall, you always bounce back. Listen, I might not be able to bring you supper tonight. The cook's getting suspicious. I'll do my best. Have I not said that 4 times? Have I not said that 4 times? Okay, thank you. I thought about it after she left. The stupidity of thanking a woman who was keeping you captive, buying your compliance by withholding food and drugs. Was I developing Stockholm Syndrome? Maybe. Although if I was, she had a considerably more advanced case than I did. Maybe that was closer to the truth. We weren't captor and captive, but 2 animals in different compartments of the same cage. Hers was just slightly larger. Which is a banger of a paragraph. I just want to make that abundantly clear. That is a really, really crazy, good, interesting way to frame all of this. And time passes. Lo's reflecting on everything. She's reflecting on her love of Winnie the Pooh. And then all of a sudden, Carrie appears, freaked the F out, saying he's coming. Richard, he's coming back tonight. It was supposed to be tomorrow, but I just got a message. He's coming back tonight. And then the chapter ends. Tuesday, 29 September, Telegraph website, breaking news, second body found in search for missing Britain, Laura Blacklock. And then we go into part 8, chapter 31. We have 6 chapters left. There in chapter 31, the opening paragraph, she's reiterating, he's coming back. We've got to get off the boat. They're docking to pick him up in about 30 minutes. I'm like, why were you not waiting in the dock? How many days have passed that you have been floating out at sea to justify you leaving the port? Again, we're talking about like crazy, crazy amounts of money. And you're telling me you couldn't afford a parking spot at the place to hang out? Maybe I'm just thinking of like American cruise ship setups, you know what I mean? Where you all can just like vibe. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I just don't know how any of this works, but it's really pissing me off right now. Carrie is like, hey, this is literally your only chance to escape. And so she starts taking her clothes off. And she's like, Lo, take yours off. We're going to trade places. You're going to dress up as Anne. Here's her passport. And you're going to pretend to be her and leave the cruise ship. Like, yeah, you're a little bit heavier, but like you'll be able to get away with it. Just like be quick about it. What do you mean exactly right now? What do you mean exactly? How many? Okay. So she's like, you're going to leave the ship dressed as Anne, and then you're going to pretend to be me or something like that. And so then Lo pushes back because she's like, I can't leave you behind. And Carrie says, no, seriously, like this is the only way that we're going to be able to do this. So trade me clothes and hit me so that I can pretend that like you overtook me and that you attacked me or something and I had no choice but to let you go. And then that's the only way that I'm going to be able to survive this is if I can convince Richard that you like overtook me and made a run for it, right? That's the only way that you and I can both survive this. So they change clothing and then she asks Lo to hit her. She can't. So then Carrie, honest to God, badass behavior over here. She's like, oh, you freaking wimp. Bashes her head as hard as possible against like the bed railing post thing, cuts her head open, almost passes out from how much it hurts and like how badly she's hurt from this. She's like bleeding everywhere. She's like, okay, it looks like you beat me up. You overpowered me. You took my clothes. The key to the suite is in your pocket. You'll find about 5,000 kroner in your purse on the dressing table. It's a mixture of Norwegian, Danish, and Swedish, but there's nearly 500 pounds worth, I think. Take the whole thing. It's got credit cards and ID. I don't know the PIN for the cards. They're not mine. They're Anne's, but you might find somewhere that'll let you sign. You'll have to ask someone to lower the gangway so you can get off the boat unless they've already got it down for Richard. Tell them that he just phoned you and you're going to meet him en route. Change your clothes. Get away from the port as soon as you can. That's it, okay? And just lock me in when you go. Lock you in? Are you sure? Yeah, it has to be convincing. Okay, but what if he doesn't come to find you? He will. It's the first thing he'll do if he finds me missing. He'll come and check on you, okay? So that's like all she asks for. All Carrie asks for is, hey, I want you to escape. I want you to get off of here. All I need is for you to give me 24 hours before you get found or report anything or say anything. Give me 24 hours to get all of this together. And second thing, get the fuck out of here. Get off this ship. Hey, you right. And that's exactly what Lo says. She says, okay, you're good. Yep, totally. And so she begins like scrambling through all of the corridors and isn't able to find anything, right? We go into chapter 32 and she's finally moving around and in these areas and in these like bright lights, and she doesn't know the way around the ship because there's no maps anywhere like posted. And she's like, I wonder if it's because of the privacy for all these rich people that they don't want it all mapped out properly. Like, that seems like a fire hazard, but okay. So she ends up getting lost. It's, I guess this is supposed to be like tension building drama, like a countdown happening. But eventually she gets up to the cabin where Carrie told her that there would be more clothes and Anne's wallet and whatnot. Takes her again, and I cannot emphasize to you enough, for freaking ever to get there. And as she's like finally there, finds the wallet, cool, grabbing different clothes, she's going through the drawers, she finds a handgun, leaves it there. As for whether I should take it, I try to imagine myself pointing a gun at someone and failed. No, I couldn't take it. Not least because I had no idea how to use it and was more likely to shoot myself than anyone else, but more because I had to get the police to believe me and trust me, and turning up to the station with a stolen loaded gun in my pocket was the best way to ensure I was locked up and not listened to. Half reluctantly, I pulled the scarves back over the gun, shut the drawer, and resumed looking for the purse. And maybe that's the American in me. This idea that she's literally being chased and concerned about being murdered and leaves it behind is wild to me. But I understand maybe she doesn't know how to use it. Finds the wallet, finds the stuff, gets some clothes. She's about to run away. She hears voices in the hallway outside of the room. And it's like a flirtatious voice, like one of the workers flirting with Lord Bulmer. He's returned. He's already on the boat. He comes into the room. She like skedaddles onto the veranda, and she's like out there like up against the wall, kind of like hiding, just like praying to God that he doesn't come outside. And she hears him calling for Anne. Obviously nobody responds. And she's just sitting there waiting and waiting and waiting until the time comes where she's like, okay, like I have to get out of this situation. And she's like, okay, well, if Carrie could do it, I could do it. I can climb over the privacy glass. Like I can climb around and scooch over and stuff over the privacy glass. Because assumably Carrie's the one that came in and stole Lo's phone, I guess. And I don't know. So she tries to do this, doesn't work, loses her grip, falls into the ocean as the cruise ship is beginning to sail out of the port. But this is her one chance. I mean, like, honestly, maybe it's probably for the best, because otherwise she wouldn't have been able to get off of the ship, right? Like, at that point, she was kind of screwed no matter what as the ship began moving. So she falls off. Super sketchy scene. She has a lot of, like, traumatic flashbacks. We get kind of, like, her reliving the prologue that we had read previously about, like, drowning and all of her nightmares coming true and blah. Like I've said, she survives. She ends up, like, somehow, I guess she fell out really, really early and really, really close to the area because she just swims a little bit and she's able to find a ladder and climbs up, and now she's on the dock. Yay! She survived. Once she gets out of the water, she does the absolute most stupid thing that you possibly could have done. Carrie told her explicitly, hey, give me 24 hours, which also was like implied, and I think it was said earlier or like whatever, of like, this guy has connections in high places. ultra rich man. He had just been in this port. Like, people know him, people know his name, know the money that he spends here. He's rich, again, like connections to, I don't know, maybe like the local police department. Maybe he's got connections in the government. Maybe just like in general, these people will recognize his name. So I need you to hold on for 24 hours before you pretend to be Anne, before you go to the cops and report anything, before you do anything. Just give me a minute to figure stuff out. In this complete and utter, and I don't say this lightly, stupid bitch goes to this hotel, bangs on the door. The only identification she has on her is Anne Bulmer's. Everything else had fallen out of her pockets. Hey, what's everything else mean? I don't know. It's not like she had anything else. It's literally was just Anne's wallet with the identification and the money. Gives this to the hotel staff, pours her heart out to them, to what she felt comfortable sharing, whatever that means. But it results in the hotel staff calling Mr. Bulmer, Lord Bulmer, and saying, hey, there's this crazy woman named Laura Blacklock at my hotel right now that has your wife's ID card. Lo, looking out at the bay, at the sea, watching the cruise ship as it sails away, and she's concerned about Carrie dying, sees it as it pauses, rotates, and begins approaching back to her. 24 hours is all she asked for, and you didn't even give her 24 minutes. And hearing the hotel guy say, okay, yes, sir. All right, Mr. Bulmer, and hang up, she says, oh no, I really, really messed up. And it's like during this moment, as she's watching the ship turn around and come toward her, she's like, oh my God, I should have believed Carrie. I thought that she was just being like paranoid. And I thought she was just being like, exaggerating his connections that he had. This is where I'm like actually genuinely pissed off with the author here. We spent this entire book of Lo fighting tooth and nail to be believed, to not be treated as hysterical, for these people to take her experience seriously and take what she's saying seriously. And the first thing that she does when a fellow woman who has been abused and went through traumatic things is like trying to help her out and like give her genuine advice and asking a favor of her, doubts that woman's experience and assumes that she's being hysterical. You literally screamed at a guy 10 chapters ago for doubting you, and you immediately turn around and doubt Carrie? Make it make sense to me. Make it make sense. But it's painted as like Lo is like, I care about her, and I just care about her safety. And there's no way that she'd be able to get off the ship by herself without my assistance and me being stupid. There's no logic there. Like, it genuinely, honest to God, does not make any sense. And so, realizing that she has revealed too much information, she escapes out of the like door that she's next to and makes a run for it through town. Because again, the freaking Aurora ship thing is coming to her. Like, Bulmer will be here shortly, so she's got to get gone. She starts running. I don't know. Eventually she's like on a road, and then this car comes rushing up behind her, and then she has to dive into the ditch, and she ends up like spraining her ankle or something. And I'm like, you were walking on the road? You didn't hear the car coming? You weren't already like walking along the edge in the bushes and like being prepared for cars coming by? You were just smack dab middle of the road that you had to dive out of the way. Car was able to see you, came to a screeching halt next to you. And then the guy gets out and looks at her and like knows that she's in the ditch. And she tries to stand up to maybe get away further, but she ends up crying out because her ankle hurts so bad. And so then he pulls her out of the ditch and he's like, hey, what's going on? In Norwegian. She's like, I speak English. And then he speaks broken English to her to figure out what's going on. It turns out he's a cop. So she's trying to, again, maybe get some help from him. But before she can really explain her situation, his radio is going off and he's talking to it in Norwegian, so she doesn't understand what's happening. And so then he goes back into his cop car, has a conversation as he's like staring at her and looking at her like really weird and making some like off expressions. And then she hears her name and she says, oh shit, he knows who I am. Maybe he's on it too. I have to leave. So she begins sprinting through the woods again. Sprinting through the woods with a broken ankle, you're telling me that a fit man who is significantly larger and taller than you won't be able to catch you? A man, I don't know, assumably born, raised, familiar with this area, isn't going to be able to, assumably healthy, able-bodied, isn't going to be able to catch your ass? Okay, got it. So she just keeps running through the night. ends up finding like a shed with some animals, passes out. She takes a little sleep. Along the way, she sees the actual aurora borealis in the sky, and she's like, this is so ironic because Bulmer said that everybody should see the aurora borealis before they die, and here I am seeing it before I inevitably die because the situation is so dire. I was really about this book up until this exact moment. Genuinely and truly, I was right here. I was right here with this book until this moment. So she stumbles into this barn, passes out. Time passes. She wakes up. I feel like that's literally the entirety of this book, is this woman passing out and then being like abruptly, jarringly woken up. But this time she's woken up by this like sweet old man. Doesn't speak, he speaks like very, again, not even like, I wouldn't even call it broken English. He just knows a couple English words and he kind of understands what she's saying, but can't really communicate back. But he looks at her and he sees that she is hurt, right? Like she's all scraped up from running through the woods and limping, and again cries out when she walks on her foot. And so they're able to communicate enough to the point where she asks for the police. And so he like shows, this is actually genuinely so cute. He pulls out his wallet and he's explaining, like, he's showing her family photos and he's like, this is my wife and these are my grandkids. And like, I am safe. You're safe. It's okay. And then they get in his car and he's like telling her that he's taking her to the police and he has his phone with him. But it's going to be a far drive because they're out in the middle of freaking nowhere, right? Like just this little random thing. He has his phone in the car. She sees it. She asks if she can use it. He says yes, but there's no bars. There's no service. So then she just sits there and has to like have this like awkward car ride. What she does notice on the phone when she looks at it to like see if there's service in the first place is that it's Tuesday the 29th. So she has like lost time. Like she must have been passed out in that shed for a while. I don't know. Like she had disappeared into, or I guess been taken, kidnapped, whatever you want to call it, kept in the bottom of the ship on the 22nd, maybe night of the 21st, early morning of the 22nd. Now she's finally free a week later. And so, second that she gets service, she calls Judah. And then we cut into chapter 36, where she is at the airport and her and Judah are having like a loving embrace, and he can't believe that she is alive, nor can she. And so they're just like holding each other, and it's just like this like really, really big shock. Like in that time that she had been found, she had gotten taken to the hospital. She got some like treatment for some different stuff, and then they like re-prescribed her antidepressants, which made her feel a lot better. And then eventually it was one of those situations where like there's like a British like ambassador that comes to collect her and like get her statement. Again and again, I found myself reciting the story of Anne and Richard and Carrie, and each time it sounded more and more implausible to my own ears. You have to help her, I kept saying. Carrie, you have to go after the boat. The official and the police officer exchanged a look, and the policeman said something in Norwegian. I knew suddenly that whatever it was they were holding back, it was not good news. What? What is it? What's wrong? The police have found 2 bodies, the embassy official said at last, his voice awkward and formal. The first in the early hours of Monday morning, dredged up by a fishing boat. The second, later on Monday, recovered by police divers. I put my head in my hands, grinding my fingers into my eyes, watching the pressure build and bloom as flames and sparks on the insides of my lids. I drew a deep breath. Tell me, I have to know. The body recovered by the divers was a man. He had been shot through the temple. The police believe it may have been a self-inflicted wound. He had no ID on him, but they are presuming it is the body of Richard Bulmer. He was reported missing from the Aurora by the crew. And the other? The other was a woman, very slim with shorn hair. The police will have to conduct post-mortem, but the preliminary findings are that she was drowned. She starts crying a whole bunch. She's like, I couldn't speak. It should have been a comfort that Bulmer had killed himself, but I couldn't find any. I just sat there crying into the tissue they gave me and thinking of Carrie and everything that she'd done to me and for me. Whatever the rights and wrongs she had paid with her life, I hadn't been fast enough to save her. I guess what I'm saying is I don't know why she would assume that it was the body of homegirls. Like, why would she assume it was Carrie's body and not Anne's body? Are we thinking that Anne's body is just floating in the middle of the North Sea and, well, not floating necessarily, but you know what I'm saying? That she's not, like, maybe in the middle of the North Sea and not found? Hey, turns out the ocean's pretty big. It's kind of hard to find people, especially It's hard enough to find, like, alive people with, like, flares and life jackets. You really think they're going to be able to find dead bodies? Okay. So we go into chapter 7. Lo ends up going home. She's just going back to London, going over to Judah's house. And he's like, wow, I can't believe that you're home. I can't believe that you're safe. I really thought you were dead. You know, they showed me those pictures of your clothes and I saw those boots, those vintage boots that you had. And I thought it was you. And she's like, she took them, like Carrie took them. So like it was her. But then she also finds out that a whole bunch of people had called trying to, I don't know, support, make sure she was okay. Some of them were like other people from the ship, like Tina, for example. And then Ben. And she's like, oh my God, I can't believe that he would call. That's so sweet of him after everything that I accused him of. And then Judah is like, well, yeah, but he also gave a news piece to somebody and made it sound like you guys just recently broke up and not that it was 10 years ago. So he's kind of a prick. And she's like, yeah, maybe I don't feel bad that I accused him of those things then. Hello? So then she's back home, she's chilling, she's like flipping through channels, looking for something reassuring and familiar, a Friends rerun maybe, or How I Met Your Mother. When I stopped dead, my heart in my mouth, my eyes were fixed on the television screen at the man staring out at me. It was Bulmer. His eyes were locked onto mine, his mouth quirked in that asymmetric smile, and for a second I thought I might be hallucinating. I drew a breath, ready to scream for Judah, ask him if he could see the face staring out of the screen at me like a nightmare. But the screen cut back to a newsreader, and I realized what was happening. It was a report of Bulmer's death. And so she's like watching this news thing, and as the newscaster continues speaking, it goes back to Richard talking at some public event, but he's muted. And he ends up bowing at some point, and like above him, she sees Anne in the crowd sitting there. She was extraordinarily beautiful with a long river of gold dark hair and broad cheekbones, and for a moment, I couldn't think of where I had seen her before, and then I realized she was Anne as she had been before Richard was through with her, young and beautiful and alive. She applauded. She seemed suddenly to realize that the cameras were on her, and her eyes flickered towards the lens, and I saw something there. Although whether it was my imagination or not, it was hard to tell. It seemed to me that there was something sad in her expression, something a little trapped and afraid. But then she smiled more broadly and put her chin up, and I saw that this was a woman who would never capitulate, never give way, a woman who would fight to the last. Then the picture changed, and we were back in the newsroom, and I turned off the screen and went back to the couch. I drew the blanket over me and turned my face to the wall, listening to Judah making tea in the next room, thinking. And then she and Judah have a conversation where she talks about feeling guilty and sad about Anne and Carrie's death. And then also she's like, and Judah, did you like formally turn down that job in New York? And he says, no, he hasn't had a chance to with everything going on. And she's like, you should take it. And I'll come with you and I'll start fresh as an investigative journalist because I don't want to do travel anymore. I want to do something that matters to people. And I realized that as I was sitting on that cruise ship all by myself, not knowing what to do and just like contemplating my life, that like I'm not happy and I don't want this anymore. I want to go with you to New York and be all of these things and do all this stuff and support you and your passions. And he's like, oh my God, that's so crazy. I love you so much. This is awesome. She can't sleep that night because all she can picture is Carrie drowning and dying. And then she says, and he asks her, he's like, are you still thinking about her? I nod in the darkness. He sighed. When you saw her body, I started, but he shook his head. I didn't. What do you mean? I thought the police sent you photographs to identify. It wasn't a body. I wish it had been. If it was Carrie's corpse, I would have known it wasn't yours. All they sent were just photographs of clothes. Why did they do that? I don't know. At the time, I assumed it was because the body was too bashed up, but I spoke to the FLO, the FLO in all caps, something officer. For some reason, I thought of like field logistics officer, but that's not right. In charge of the case after you called. I wanted to find out how the hell they could have got it so wrong, and she spoke to me, and she spoke to the Norwegians and seemed to think it was because the clothes were found separately. I lay there trying to puzzle it out. Had Carrie kicked off the boots and hoodie to try to swim for it in a desperate attempt to get away from Bulmer? Oh, okay. I wish they would have specified a little bit more of like where the body was found. Because, again, day one being kicked off of the ship or thrown off of the side of the ship in Trondheim is a lot different than being found immediately outside of the port of the other place, like It's a 10-hour drive from one to the other. I don't know how much that is in boat time, but like driving wise, that's a very far distance. Location matters. I'm just saying. And also, I thought she was like zipped up in a suitcase. Did the suitcase actually fall apart? Was she actually alive? You just told me that she was a fighter in this news clip and she was going to fight till the end. Was that validation that what Carrie had said was true and that maybe Anne did push back when she found out that he was cheating on her and that maybe the death did actually happen? Or was that supposed to insinuate that maybe she was still alive and she escaped the suitcase and escaped death and she's actually surviving somewhere? What was I supposed to take from that? It wasn't just Carrie's death that I couldn't accept. It was Bulmer's. Not because I thought he should have lived, but because his death, out of all of it, just didn't make sense. Carrie's suicide I could have believed, but not his. Try as I might, I couldn't imagine that man with his cold, fierce determination giving up. He had fought so hard, played his cards with such odd, cold daring. Would he really throw in his hand just like that? It didn't seem possible. But it was. And I had to accept that. He was gone. I shut my eyes again, pushing his specter away from me as I curled my body around Judah's, and I thought very deliberately about the future, about New York, about the leap of faith I was about to make. For a moment, I saw a sharp, flashing image imprinted on the darkness of my closed lids. Myself poised on the very edge of a high, high place, balancing on a rail, the dark waves below. But I had no fear. I had fallen before, and I had survived. And the book ends with another news report. This time from The Standard on Thursday, 26 November, so like a month later. Mystery woman in Aurora drowning identified. Almost 2 months after the shocking discovery of 2 bodies at sea, one of them British businessman and peer, Richard Bulmer, Norwegian police have today released a statement announcing the identity of the body dredged up by fishermen in the North Sea to be that of his wife, Anne Bulmer, heiress to the billion-pound Lyngstad fortune. The body of Lord Bulmer was found several hundred miles away by police divers searching the coastal waters near Bergen in Norway. After the peer was reported missing from his boat, the exclusive boutique cruise line, the Aurora. Not suicide. The English language statement confirms the previous announcement by Norwegian police that the cause of Lady Bulmer's death was drowning, while Lord Bulmer's death was due to a gunshot wound to the temple. However, the document contradicts earlier reports of Lord Bulmer's suicide, stating simply that the injury was not self-inflicted according to the findings of the local pathologist. The discovery of a gun recovered alongside Lord Bulmer's body and wrapped in clothing belonging to missing British journalist Laura Blacklock led to initial allegations that his death was connected to her disappearance some days before. Wrapped in the clothing? How would it have been wrapped so well in the clothing that it was found in the water? Like literally tied in the clothing? Like were we literally like tying knots to trap this thing in her clothing? I feel like it would have like floated apart in some way. How quickly was it found? Like after he went missing? Hours? I feel like that would have still been enough time for, you know what? It doesn't matter. Miss Blacklock was later found alive and well in Norway, but her parents have called for a police inquiry. And this says inquiry with an I. Maybe there is a difference. After they were left for several days, believing that the body had been identified as that of their missing daughter. Scotland Yard stressed that the body had never at any stage been identified as Miss Blacklock, but admitted that the finding of Miss Blacklock's clothes had been poorly communicated to the family. They blamed the failings on cross-force communication issues with the Norwegian police handling the case, and have said that they are in private contact with the Blacklock family over the incident. In answer to the Standard's inquiry, a Norwegian police spokesperson stated that although they have interviewed Miss Blacklock in connection with the case, they are not considering the Briton as a suspect in either death, and their investigations are continuing. So your whole plot, your whole book hinges on the idea that you just lied to your readers based off of shoddy police work. Such shoddy police work that we got, you know what? It doesn't matter. I'm going to read you this last thing. It's a banking live chat on 6 December at 4:15. Hi, welcome to our online customer services chat. You're speaking with Asia from Online Personal Banking. How can I help you today, Miss Blacklock? Hi, I'm emailing because I received an odd credit to my account. I want to see if you had any info on the sender. Thanks. Hi, Miss Blacklock. Sure, I can look into that. Is it okay if I call you Laura? Yep, that's fine. What is the transaction you're concerned about, Laura? It's 2 days ago, dated 4 December for 40,000 Swiss francs. I hope that's how you say that. Let me check that for you. I have details here. The transaction with the reference Tigger's Bounce? Yes, that's correct. I have checked the sort of code. It's a Swiss bank account based in Bern. I'm sorry to say I don't have any information on the identity of the bank account holder. It's a numbered account. Does the reference convey anything? It's fine, thanks. No worries. I'm pretty sure it's from a friend. I just wanted to check. Thanks for looking into it. You're welcome. Is there anything else I can help you with today, Laura? No, that's fine. Thank you, and goodbye. So, Tigger's Bounce, I'm going to assume is in reference because of the Winnie the Pooh book that freaking Carrie gave low and talked about, my mom used to call me Tigger because I could recover. This is stupid. Like, genuinely, I'm actually genuinely like kind of frustrated right now with this book. The whole plot of this is hinged on the idea that they couldn't tell the difference. Nobody at any point could tell the difference between Anne and Carrie. She was that good of an actress. They looked that much alike that like nobody batted an eye at it. And even like Lo had addressed that at one point. She's like, I should have seen the difference, but like because she was so sick, I didn't want to stare at her. Or like when I looked at her, all I saw was her illness and how like gaunt she looked. And like, you know what I mean? She was like, I just felt bad for her. I wasn't really like perceiving her as a human. I was just perceiving her as a sick woman, which again is like a very interesting, nuanced conversation to have about like our perception of people that are like critically, chronically, deathly ill, like in the humanity that is lost in viewing somebody in that way that I think is like a little bit like more, it's not permeated. I feel like you see that a lot in like general and especially in like pop culture and stuff of like when people are sick, they're kind of like, they lose an aspect of humanity. Hey, great example, Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka, right? Like it's a really interesting conversation to have there that like, yeah, maybe she was overlooked to the point that it was believable that this random woman could take her place and pretend to be her and nobody would bat an eye at it. But also like that's also asking kind of a lot of your reader to suspend their disbelief over. And then the assumption that then fucking homegirl over here could also just hop right in and pretend to be this woman. And then none of them had anything to do with anything. I don't find any more, I feel like I wasted so much time reading and establishing and being introduced to all of these people in all of these different cabins. And like I said, I thought we were going to play a game of Clue. I thought there was going to be a little bit more tie-ins and interest and like whatever about all of these people, but not a single one of their names got mentioned after the like 40%, not 40, it was like 60% mark. You know what I'm saying? Like, completely just fucking dead to the story. They didn't have to be there. None of them had to be there to add anything to the plot other than to distract you for a couple chapters and as like page filler almost for what was going on. Which, again, I'm not saying was a bad thing. It's not poorly written. Like, it's well written. I was interested in those characters. They were well fleshed out. They had individual personalities. That was a good aspect. It just sucks that, like, literally none of their stories and none of those things, like, fed into the greater overall story arc, right? Like, none of that fed into anything. They were completely irrelevant up until the very end. You can't even tell me that she freaking went and decided to go and work for Tina. Right? Like, that didn't even come back around. She didn't, like, rekindle her relationship with Ben. She didn't, like, the whole thing wasn't, like, she did actually break up with Judah and then she ended up with Ben later. Or, you know, she didn't have a conversation with Ben eventually to do a wrap-up. Like, nothing got addressed there. It's all just like, oh, well, there you go. The burglary thing was a complete fake thing that had nothing to do with anything. We couldn't even... I don't think I liked this book. It's not that it was well written, but I don't think I liked this. I don't think the twist and the reveal was interesting. I think, again, it was just frustrating that it seemed like part of this book was trying to write as like a critique of like class and rich people getting away with stuff and like this like opulence here and thinking that they can do whatever and treat people however and like be crappy. And I don't know, maybe some like greater social commentary. But then it completely falls flat because that ultimately has nothing to do with anything. Or maybe it does have a lot to do with everything, but it's not like formally addressed or talked about by the author or by the characters in a way to make it relevant to the plot. It's just this like inherent thing that I'm supposed to assume. Like, I'm just supposed to like come to my own conclusions that rich people be doing rich people shit, which I mean isn't a wrong sentence, but you know what I'm saying of like, you still have to tie it into your story somehow a little bit, please. I'm not asking you to spell it out in like, you know, a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but hey, if you could maybe give me like a 4, 8, 16, 32, like give me some type of something to follow here of what your thought process was. Like, I don't know. I don't even know if that makes any sense to you, but I hope you kind of understand what I'm saying of like, I can recognize a pattern but you have to tell me at least kind of what I'm looking at, or like, not even what I'm looking at, but like what your intention was here. Because again, as far as I'm concerned, I just wasted my goddamn time reading about these rich folks. You done pissed me off. Like, how does this matter to you as an author? And how does this matter to the story that you're wanting to tell here? Because as far as the ending goes that we got with Lo, it doesn't matter at all. And also, homegirl sending her 40,000 francs, where she got the money from? Is she pretending to be Anne Bulmer? Well, no, because Anne Bulmer's body got found. Did she funnel a bunch of money? Did he die and actually leave the money to her because he did actually truly love her and she inherited all of his fortune? Like, was that a true aspect of it? So now she's like rolling in the dough over here and sharing it with the woman that saved her life? But Lo didn't save Carrie's life. Lo, honest to God, tried to get that woman got. Fucking coming right off the cruise ship, saying all this dumb stuff to these people in this hotel. She wasn't looking out for her by that point. She was being stupid and not trusting her and being a hypocrite about thinking that this woman was being dramatic. Like, I don't know. I'm like so frustrated. I'm not, obviously you can tell. Like, like it had so much potential to be good and then it like fell flat in so many ways that like, I'm like, is this good on purpose, or did you just like happen to be a good author? A good writer. Oh, how do I explain that? A good writer, but not a good author. A good writer, but not a good storyteller. You can be one. Like, those are mutually exclusive things. A good writer and a good storyteller. Is that what happened here? Is that why I'm upset? Because I should have liked it, but I don't because it wasn't cohesive? I don't know. I'm going to unpack it. I'm going to think about it again. Let me know your thoughts. Comment down below. Subscribe if you liked what's happening. Or don't. I don't know. Whatever, dude. I hope you like this video. And if you ended up watching like the Netflix adaptation of this book, I would love to hear your thoughts on that and how it compares and whatnot. And did you predict this? Did you see it coming? What are your thoughts? Am I just being crazy hateful right now? You tell me. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!